Item 35.
Thank you. You're welcome. Order. We can all rise for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to take a time for a moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protected our nation and the first responders who protected our neighborhoods. In addition to this, I'd like to add another individual that I'd like to have people do a moment of silence for and remember. On March 6th, we had the passing of Joy Auerbach, who was a phenomenal community advocate and helping people, not only in White Meadow Lake, but Rockaway Township as a whole. And I'm going to do my best to just provide a little bit of a narrative of her accomplishments and what she did from talking to a lot of friends and family. I had a personal relationship with her and her lifelong friend, Mrs. Auerbach, who also is a large volunteer and a pillar in the community, who they shared a great relationship with. Joy had come here from Brooklyn in 1973. And as I had spoken to Mrs. Degman, she was on the ground running to be the president of the Women's Club. And she also was the president of the POA on 2 different occasions over a course of 6 years, totaling that, being involved with the POA. She was also on the chair of the festival. She was on the library board. She chaired that as well. She was also an individual that filled an unexpired term as a councilwoman also. She was on the Board of Adjustment. She just hand wrote a letter to me, unfortunately, a week before she had passed, which you don't usually get. She's got wonderful penmanship of her interest. In addition to being on the planning board, she also wanted to be on the financial review board. Joy was an individual that received joy from bringing joy to other people. I don't want to sound kind of comical with that, but that's kind of her routine. She wouldn't rest until she was able to make other people's rest and making things easy. It's almost as if she needed about 30 hours in a day for all the work that she did, and the Everybody Bunny would probably run out of steam compared to Joy. And when Joy passed, which was on her birthday, Joy was kind of private. She never told anything about herself, even her age, and she kept it that way with that. So having her not around and her involvement that's there, it's probably going to be a very difficult thing for somebody to fill for the amount that she's done. She was extremely helpful. I know people in the community are going to recognize that and miss her dearly for everything that she's done. She was nonpartisan. She didn't get involved. All she wanted to know is, how can I help? What can I do? And put everything aside to do that. So if there's a possibility that during the open public portion, those that know Joy, if you can just come up and just say one little thing about it, it's great. Because she's not gone, and the longer that we talk about her is going to continue that memory of her being around as if she's currently around, her spirit and everything else that's there. So with that, if you can just join me in a moment of silence for Joy, as well as our service members and first responders, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Here.
Councilmember Juddinaff?
Here.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Here. Excuse me, here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Jackson?
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Here.
President Kelly?
Here. This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record and the Star Ledger, the official newspaper for the Township of Rockaway, on January 11, 2019. Notice was posted on the official bulletin boards of Rockaway Township. Number 6 is designation of Sergeant of Arms. Township Code 2-5.15, decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other persons in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant of arms at the council meeting. Sergeant of arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. And I see in the background we got our officers, Lieutenant, Atchison. We have Officer Udina, and I think we also have Officer Hamilton. And all three of you will be the Sergeant of Arms?
I'll be the Sergeant of Arms.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Number 7, we have ordinances to adopt. It's A, would be ordinance would be O19-04, an ordinance fixing the salaries of various officials and exempt employees of the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris. If you want to make a motion, have a little bit of discussion. Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Quinn, you're second?
Yes, sir.
Annie, you were, or is Jonathan? I'm sorry. Councilman Sackett. Discussion?
Council President, because this is up for adoption, I think you have to open it to the public.
Yeah. If any members of the public wish to come up and talk about this ordinance, 19-04. Come on up, Ms. Degman.
Pat Degman, 88 Valley View Drive. In reading over this ordinance, I noticed in section 2, it says all temporary part-time employees not herein otherwise provided shall be paid between $8.60 and $25 per hour. Don't we have to change that now to $10 since the governor has issued the $10 minimum wage?
Mr. Giatrofano, is that something that you could assist with, Mrs. Degman?
I don't know that the statute's in effect, yes. If that's applicable, if it's past the statutory waiting period for that statute to be in effect, and if it applies to us, the answer is yes. But
we're uncertain of that right now at this moment.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mrs. Degman, we would have to just wait and see. Perhaps after the meeting we can do a little research with. Okay.
Yeah. And Council President?
Yes.
As Ms. Palmieri has pointed out, it's a range. So even if the amendment of the state statute would apply to us, we're just approving a range here. And it would be satisfactory to move forward with the ordinance.
Even though the range, the minimum end of it is lower than the minimum wage would be?
Be commanded in the case that the state statute or regulation is applicable to us,
should
just be compelled to ignore anything below the state minimum.
Yeah, no, I agree. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on this particular ordinance? Seeing nobody close to the public, any discussion here?
I think it should be changed before we approve it.
Not necessary.
Council President, I would concur with that. This ordinance should be correct before the council votes on it. Additionally, as we saw in last night's first budget meeting of the budget season, there are changes being made to the budget, including salaries. We still have more budget meetings. We have more work to do on this. And in its current form, I don't think this ordinance is the ordinance that needs to be passed by this governing body. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this side? I just had a couple of comments, Mrs. Palmieri, since we were going through the budget, and it was only 3 that we had yesterday that was there. There were some questions that we had with some of the salaries, and then there's some adjustment with the salaries that were there that we had some questions on. And since we're not completed with the budget, I believe our last budget meeting is going to be this Friday, that maybe we can address this afterwards to have it more exact to what we approve moving forward?
We could, certainly. These are just ranges, and the adjustments that we've made so far are still falling within these ranges. But if you'd like to wait until the budget process is complete with our meetings, that's fine. It's just delaying. It's not going to make a big difference.
Okay, great.
Council President, one more thing I'd point out is that Section 2 of the ordinance pertains to temporary and part-time employees. The draft I saw of the state regulation or statute applied to full-time employees, but I don't know if that was changed before it was passed. But even as it stands now, the ordinance is not incorrect.
But just so we're clear, it's not a difficult thing, and it's not pressing right now, Mrs. Palmieri, where we can make the changes accordingly to the budget?
So you're asking me if it's okay to wait to adopt until after, at our next meeting?
Yes.
I would say that's fine.
Council President, if there are any necessary, we can't adopt at the next meeting. We have to reintroduce, which would mean we'd have to then wait for the notice period and adopt at a subsequent meeting.
We have the majority of that to do that over again. It shouldn't take much to do that. Yeah, well, and Mr. Atrofano, in the meantime, since making the roll call that we have here in the event that it does not pass, and before it's drafted and make the corrections to adjust to the budget, you could also look to see about the minimum wage, to see if in fact it's something that we need to address or have that added in there for a correction.
Yes.
Great. With that being said, clerk to the roll.
We have a motion to adopt.
Yeah.
I don't think it would.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
We'd like to adopt instead of only.
Well, you're
Well,
voting it down
no.
so we can make the change
Yes.
Yes.
to keep it.
To adopt it?
You're voting to adopt
no.
it, or you want to change?
I want to change.
And then vote, then you would vote.
Oh, okay. No.
Councilmember Jedak?
No.
Councilmember Palumbo?
No, I'm locked out. Somebody's got, we're locked out. One of you five got turned votes.
There you go.
Sorry, Council Palumbo. Go ahead, hit it.
No.
Councilmember Smith?
No.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Jackson?
Abstain.
Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
President Kelly?
No. I have one yes,
7 no.
7 no's, and 1 abstention. Is not going to be approved. So we'll just start fresh with those adjustments that are on there after the budget and from our research with regards to the minimum wage moving forward. Thank you for that, gentlemen. Robert, do you have the list for me by chance? Thank you. And just so that the members of the public, I have 2 entities that are here tonight. I have Rockaway Borough, members of their elected office, as well as Recreation Director. And we also have our Superintendent and I believe our Board President from the school board that are here to talk. So I hope with your permission and approval that we can put them first and make it brief, and then we can go to the individuals that are on the list and those who that aren't on the list that wish to talk as well. So with that being said, if I could have Rockaway Borough come on up. If I can just introduce you guys. I got Tom Mulligan, who was a former council president, who is now a councilman. I got Council President Smith that's here, and I also have Mr. O'Connor, Recreation of Rockaway Borough. And I know a gentleman had reached out and was wanted to talk a little bit about Park Lake and what you guys are doing. A little bit of background, we had a small conversation last year in the beginning of the year. Park Lake, some decorations for themes around the holidays. We talked about some dispatch, maybe some shared services and stuff like that. And I know that you guys are moving forward with with your improvements that you are doing, and we have an area of potential improvement on our side of the lake that we share an amounts of. So with that introduction, if you guys can, please feel free.
Yep. Mayor Puzio, Council President Kelly, rest of the council, thank you very much for allowing us to come before you. Earlier in the year, I had the honor of also being in front of you with our first responders, recognizing them for an incident on Route 80.
Yeah.
So,
and the baby that was also saved, the Rockaway Borough police officer resuscitated a 14-month-old baby.
Yep. Actually, at our Thursday meeting, we'll be recognizing Patrolman Dave Flynn, who rescued the 15-month-old baby and resuscitated him, who's actually a Rockaway Township resident. So I would invite anybody that would like to come and recognize Dave with us at our council meeting on Thursday. Lieutenant, any of the officers, if you want to put that through the shop, if anybody would be interested in showing up at our council meeting Thursday.
When is it again? I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
When was the meeting? I'm sorry.
Thursday, this coming Thursday, 7:30, we'll be recognized Patrolman Dave Flynn.
Okay.
Yep, so just, if anybody's available.
Okay, thank you.
Council meeting, we have a budget meeting at that time.
So it's just, you know, things like that, you know, our shared interest in our first responders, you know, we're across each other's borders daily, you know, supporting each other. And, you know, certainly doesn't just stop at first responders, but we also have other shared interests, as in, you know, Parks Lake, which Councilman Smith will give a little bit more detail of why we're standing before you.
Good evening, thank you. As Tom Mulligan said, Councilman Mulligan said, my name is Robert Smith. I'm Council President of Rockaway Borough.
Any relation to somebody up here?
Yes, that's my mother. Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking you, Mayor Puzio, Council President Kelly, Council, and the residents of Rockaway Township for letting us be here tonight and giving us this opportunity to address you. I'm here to briefly talk about Fox Pond, or as everybody else commonly knows it as Parks Lake. Our towns have continuously worked together, making this lake a major attraction for both of our communities. Our combined towns residents enjoy the lake's natural beauty throughout the seasons, walking the path around the lake year-round, fishing in season, they enjoy concerts, they take prom pictures, and even get married at the gazebo on the Rockaway Township side of the lake. On the Rockaway Borough side of the lake, the residents enjoy the beach. We have some slides and swings and a new shade structure that they also enjoy. A combined Township and Borough kids swim team competes in the swim lanes, and the residents take advantage and use the recently rebuilt volleyball courts. For those of you who are not aware, the dam on the Borough side was inspected and is required by the Department of Environmental Protection to undergo major reconstruction of both the dam and the spillway. This dam is classified by the DEP as a Class 1 dam, the definition of which is a dam of high potential hazard, and failure of the dam may result in probable loss of life and or extensive property damage. As the DEP has made us aware that this is a time-sensitive issue, the Borough has filed the required paperwork for the permits, including all the reports and drawings prepared by our engineer. This major undertaking by the Borough requires that the lake be drained for the work to be done to the dam. While the lake is drained, we will also be performing some additional work not associated with the dam construction, but equally essential and vital to maintaining the lake's beauty. The Borough will be dredging specifically targeted areas, after which we will be adding a weed control system, aerators, and also installing at least one, possibly two fountains in the lake. The dredging is being done to remove stormwater runoff sediment deposits, which have accumulated and built up in areas of the lake through the years, and return the Borough side of the lake to its original healthy depths. We're here tonight to ask that Rockaway Township partner with us and invest in this mutually shared natural attraction by funding the critically needed dredging on the Township side of the lake. As most of you know, on the Rockaway Township side of the lake by the gazebo is the creek that feeds the lake. This creek receives its water from multiple sources within Rockaway Township. The most obvious are the creek that runs from Stony Brook. It starts off up at Copeland, runs down through the Stony Brook development in the White Meadow section, which also collects stormwater runoff. And the other one is the creek that starts out in front of the municipal building, runs past the recycling yard, down past the Fleetwood development and the McKinley development that was done, they were done in, I guess, in the early 60s and mid 70s and some again in the 90s. The area of the lake where this river runs, or the creek runs into, has been severely impacted with stormwater sediment deposits, which have built up to such a point that a peninsula has built out into the lake 20 to 30 yards, if not further, and it has weeds and trees growing on it. And it's even buried an existing fountain that was donated by the Rotary clubs.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a fountain over there. If these sediment deposits are not removed through the dredging, they will continue to build and continue to severely impact the health and beauty of the entire lake in a negative way. Rockaway Borough has paid for the testing of the lake sediment deposits, a cost saving to Rockaway Township, which fortunately in our community's favor have tested clean, making the dredging and disposal process as inexpensive as possible. As I stated earlier, Rockaway Township and Rockaway Borough have worked together in the past on projects concerning the lake, which both our town's residents enjoy, and we are asking Rockaway Township to continue to do so by funding the critical dredging that's needed within the township boundaries. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak here this evening. Thank you for the residents for listening to me about the project that we're going to do, the dredging and the lake work. We hope that you feel the lake that's within both of our communities, that so many residents enjoy throughout the year, and is in our town's shared best interest, is worthy of some funding from Rockaway Township for the dredging that's needed in those boundaries. So thank you very much for the time, and if you can answer any questions.
Yeah, please don't sit down. I have a couple of things that I may ask, but I want to give everybody else the opportunity, as well as potentially our engineer and our mayor to jump in. I see you grabbing the mic, John. Yeah, please go ahead.
Any idea the cost?
I do not have a number for the dredging on your side. I was researching stuff online, before tonight, obviously, and there's a wide range, and it basically comes down to how much area is being dredged, the depth that it has to go down to hit what they call firm bottom, and the contamination or not contaminated soils, which we know right now are not contaminated. So that's going to keep us on the lowest end of the spectrum.
Council President.
Good, Jeremy.
Council President Smith, what is the cost on the borough side for the project you have planned, and how is the borough financing that?
We have started funding and putting money away over the last several years. Our latest estimate for just the dam repairs, which I believe is going to go up tremendously, was $800,000. And then on top of that, we have monies for the dredging. Again, due to the time period for all the reports and the testing to get to the point that we're at, I think that number is going to be substantially higher.
Anybody else in the dais? Nobody?
So if I understand this correctly, if we don't participate in this, it's going to impact your corrective actions?
Yes, eventually what will happen is that the sediment that's there, when we do the dredging on our part, will fall down into the area that we've dredged and continue to
fill it up,
fill the lake up, and go in the system. If you drive by, you can see how far out that peninsula has grown. Looking at it yesterday and today driving by, I'm guessing from the distance of the road, there's a tree growing out there that's got to be 4 to 6 inches round. And that whole peninsula there is where the creek feeds in, which when I was a kid, we used to ice skate right up to that.
Yeah. I did bring this up a couple of years ago.
So on top of that, documents I had given to Mayor Puzio as well as Council President Kelly from legal treatment ordinances between Rockaway Township, between Rockaway Borough, between the developers of the Fleetwood development, where it was back in the 60s, 70s, it was recognized already regarding the runoff. And we believe sediment traps were already put into place to take care of that. We need to go back, hopefully check to see the condition of those at the moment, as well as reference within those agreements. There's also a 750-gallon.
There was within the paperwork that was given to you this evening. Hopefully you can pass it out to everybody and make copies. There was talk of a sediment trap that was supposed to be down towards the inlet of the lake, which I have never personally seen. I've heard, for lack of a better word, rumors that it's in the area of the bridge, possibly under the bridge. that's going across the creek, again, I don't know for fact. And there was also talks in there about a 750,000 gallon storage tank that was supposed to collect the runoffs were supposed to go through is another sediment trap. Anybody I've spoken to, nobody honestly knows of that. When you're going from the municipal building down to Park Lakes, once you pass Fleetwood and follow the creek down, you're all aware where the houses are on the right-hand side to have the bridges over what used to be the creek. Speaking with some of the people and residents of Rockaway who've been there longer than I, those were actually ponds that have filled in from the sediment since the developments were put in. So it's been an ongoing problem, and it's just gotten to the point where if you look at aerial photos of the lake, it's unbelievable the amount of sediment that's in there. You can see it.
You know, as you had talked in the Fleetwood area, where we have Fleetwood, we have Queens, we have Robin Street, we have Kings, and we had Lennox that came in later in life, and then of course we have McKinley, Leah, Legion, then Chestnut area that goes all the way around. And I think the area that we were talking about before is Reservoir that comes down from Oot, and then you have Stony Brook that comes down, and all these inlets that come in down by Seminole as well, over by the cemetery and a new development they put up there on the Borough side.
We're addressing one of the areas we're addressing, dredging is that area, and we are addressing the sediment that we're getting from the runoff, stormwater runoff from the hill. We have budgeted this year, and we're putting in, and it's being designed, which is a bioswale that will catch all the sediment that comes down from the hill, and it will not go into the lake. So that's how we're addressing it on that side, and we're going to be addressing it as well over on where Hickory runs down in. The paperwork that we gave you this evening specifically states and goes back to the Fleetwood development and mentions 533 homes at the time that was built. So I'm assuming by that statement in the resolution that it took into account Kings, Phillip, Queens, and that whole area over there.
Right, which we have here as well. Now the other things are, as far as the money that we have or that you are trying to allocate now within your budget through taxes, has there been any kind of potential application for grants?
We're always looking for grants. I was looking last night. I know Rob O'Connor, our rec director, is always looking for grants. For what the dam is, sometimes we're told that they're available, then we're told they're not, but we're definitely looking for grants.
The other question I have is, since we have the bridge, which there was a story in the Daily Record that we had here not that long ago for the deteriorating bridge that was actually dedicated to the Legion not that long ago from the county as one of those bridges that were there. Has the county actually been approached for this too? I don't know if there was any easements or areas where this catch basin could be that would maybe minimize any settlement going into further increasing this shoreline. I mean, that's basically what's happening now. I mean,
the lake's filling up from the creek down.
Yeah.
The rec director Rob O'Connor had said last year or year prior.
You want to come up to the mic, Mr. O'Connor?
Yeah, no, and listen, I wouldn't have believed it until I went out there myself. I took a rowboat out there with a member that was convincing me of what was going on. And we were trying to do depths, trying to get a gauge of where, because we were thinking about moving the swim lanes. We want to kind of see where we could move them. It needs to be a certain depth to move those swim lanes. And as we boated towards the swim lanes and out towards the Township Borough side, we noticed in the paddle, still, quickly, as soon as we crossed that line, it was starting to hit the bottom. The further we went, it really was hitting the bottom to the point where we were literally on the rowboat. We were bottoming out.
Yeah.
And the black that came off that paddle was just, it was unbelievable. You would have no idea unless you were out there in the boat, and I had no idea until I actually went out there. So that sediment is quick. We see the peninsula, but underneath, next to all that, is it's going to be up like the peninsula now.
Go ahead, you have something?
Yeah, any one of you gentlemen, last time it was dredged,
I don't have it factual, but I want to say it was in the 70s. From what we were seeing, it was part of the resolution that you have.
Which is much different back then to do that.
Because what had happened was once the development was going in, the Fleetwood development was going in, the sediments came down, and it actually, from the paperwork, changed the color of the lake. It made it where it was not swimmable, and part of the agreement was that the township and the developer paid to have the dredging done.
Just one more question. Council.
Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Council President, you said the lake has to be drained?
Yes, in order for the dam to be done, the lake has to be drained. The lake is that dam that we have, as I said, is a Class 1 dam. And as you all know, after the storms we had, the DEP was going out and checking all the dams. And because it's a Type 1 or Class 1 dam, it has to be inspected every 2 years. So at this point in time, the only way that that dam can be repaired to the extent that the DEP is requiring is the lake has to be drained and the water has to be diverted down and through the lake.
And we have to relocate the fish and all that.
Okay, so the water enters the lake through the Rockaway Township side, right?
Yes.
One of a few inlets.
The main inlet that's actually a creek and not just 100% stormwater is the creek that comes in by the gazebo. The other thing that we all need to remember as well, if you follow the lake and the water from here down through the lake where the sediment is, over the dam, it goes into the Rockaway River, which feeds Jersey City's reservoir. So it's actually a very important piece of water, and the sediment's going down and into the reservoir and into the river. It's really a big impact.
Well, everything now has been classified as Class 1 anyways, though.
Well, the Class 1 is based off of the height of the dam and what will happen to
the water itself, though, everything Class 1 waterways.
Yeah.
I believe, C1, I'm sorry.
But as far as the class of the dam, when we had the report and they came in with the report, my times may be off a little bit, I apologize. But when they came in and did the report, it was a little overwhelming. And they said if that dam was to fail and give a total failure, that within 15 to 20 seconds, the water would be down through Friendship Field, out onto Main Street. Anybody on Friendship Field and from the lake down through Friendship Field to Main Street would be washed away.
Have you had any Google photos, like a comparison? Like when we had, in 2011, I think it was August 27th, when we had Irene storm. And then in 2012, around October 30th, 29th, we had Sandy. Before, after, to see if there's any effects, or maybe a 10-year span to see how much of the shoreline has been increasing of that inlet area. Has there been any documentation or photographs of that you have?
Yes.
And the DEP that you're dealing with, is that out of the Chester office?
The gentleman I was speaking to today was down in Trent.
Okay.
Because this is actually out of there because of the class of the dam. They're down there reviewing our plans and all the reports.
Mrs. Ferrante, we had a small conversation in 2018, and you're really kind of the expert on engineering and all this stuff that goes on there, maybe dealing with some of these officials, and I believe the engineer for the borough is Mr. Fierro from Fierro Engineering out of Chester. I don't know if Dave Siamba out of the DEP out of the Chester office too is involved with this, but is there any information that you have or knowledge or?
Yeah, I believe we spoke in September, October.
Yeah, matter of fact, we spoke twice because we were at the cleanup for in April, because that's where I usually walk out with my daughter to clean up on that shoreline that's there.
It's there too.
Yeah. And then we spoke a little bit after that.
Yeah, and you know, it's definitely a sediment bar there, and there's no denying that, and it's been there for quite some time and accumulating, like you said. Actually, ironically, just last week, we had a meeting with the county, because as we all know that bridge on Chestnut Terrace is being replaced by the county. They are going through the DEP to repair that bridge, and to do so they have DEP permits. So they wanted to bring that design to us and review it before they go in for their permits. And putting a sediment trap in that structure would increase.
I wasn't saying to install one in there. I was saying by the paperwork that we had.
I don't believe to our knowledge, I was looking for DPW.
If that sediment trap was put in there back in the 70s and has not been cleaned since, we'll never find it.
No, there's no sediment trap in the county bridge.
No, I don't mean in the bridge. Okay. I mean down in that area of the creek.
No, there's not. So actually, we had to discuss this. We discussed this with administration, and like you said, it is a very costly line item. I'm not sure where your extent of sampling occurred of the was it in situ sampling?
I'm sorry?
The sampling of the sediment material, the dredged material to be sampled.
I know they did it in multiple spots on the lake. I couldn't tell you exactly where and how.
And did it come up residential, non-residential?
The only thing I asked was if it was contaminated and difficult to get rid of, or if it was clean and easy to get rid of. And I told it was the best sample we could have.
All right, well, there's different classifications, and there's different sampling parameters. So we would have to sample our side of the lake as well, and that's a large unknown at this time. But it doesn't mean it can't be happening, but it's a large unknown. So while your side of the lake may sample XYZ, we have different parameters. We also, not only does it get fed from the stream, a large portion of that runoff does come from Route 80. So you've got runoff from Route 80 that cycles through there and deposits in that area, as well as up Chestnut Terrace.
Chestnut?
Yeah.
And when you go down off of Stony Brook Road, right before Route 80, if you make the left and go up the gentleman's driveway there.
Yeah.
Willow.
Not Willow, there's a driveway that goes to the residential house.
Yeah, Solerso's property.
About halfway up that driveway on the right-hand side, you'll see where the creek comes in, and just prior to that, you'll see the stormwater basin that's full of sediment.
And that's in the back development of Henry and Barry and all that that's over there on the other side of the bridge.
It's on the side of the bridge.
So it's a great opportunity to work together. However, we just need, it's a very, as you acknowledge, it's a very costly item. I mean, based on the disposal cost per cubic yard of material, it's a very high, it's not getting rid of clean fill. So we want to make sure that when we go forward that we're managing the sediment that's going in there, that we're not just going to dredge out the material and then in 5-10 years we're back to a large price item to dredge the material out again. So we want to make sure that we're doing sediment management practices upstream, like you mentioned. And actually today, me and my DPW superintendent met with Princeton Hydro on site to discuss some of those options and actually potential grant opportunities that we could have to match the township's resources that we want to devote towards this. We also were notified of this, I was made aware of it, back in the fall of 2018, and like you said, it takes time to put away money and plan for these items. So we would like to, we just need a little bit of time, and we have 4 dams that we're currently working on and making sure that they meet dam safety standards, and that's what we're tucking away for. So it is a great opportunity, and I would love to discuss it further with you.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, what we are asking is to be able to come together jointly, to be able to have these discussions, to jointly make decisions regarding the lake. Instead of Rockaway Borough making unilateral decision on the borough side and hoping that the town, I'd rather us come together on this project.
Oh, sure. I mean, and on the spot too, in all fairness to Mrs. Ferrante, that, they have to look at it and see what other plans, and even if we can actually move some of it on site where it's not considered contaminated, it's only contaminated when you remove it from the site, where those costs would come in.
Once you disturb that material.
Yeah, when we were dealing with that with Lake Telemark, when we had DEP up there, if we left it on site and moved it on site to utilize that or capped it, it wasn't considered contamination until we removed it off site. I don't know if that's something that has changed since then through DEP standards that are on there.
Yeah, that whole area is highly regulated, wetlands, riparian, FEMA, flood hazard. So not only is it the excavation and disposal cost that we're dealing with, it's a highly regulated, permitted area. So there are costs involved, and we want to proceed cautiously to make sure that...
I did. I discussed this in depth. You got the same explanation tonight that I received. When Mayor Gruder reached out to me, as you know, I became mayor in November. Some of this has been discussed in prior years, but I inherited some of this. Mayor Gruder approached me, and immediately I approached our engineer, and I had her speak to your engineer so they could work out the technical end of it. And I think that there was a little bit of a disconnect as far as what needed to be done on our side and what needed to be done on your side. Then I found out about the sediment trap that, in essence, just to make it simple, it's throwing good money after bad. If it's going to happen in 5 years from now, if we're going to spend potentially $200,000 to $400,000 to clean this up right now, that's an estimated cost depending on what we find. And then 5 years later, 6 years later, we're back to square one. That wouldn't be where we would want to be. We would want to remediate that. And then, as Allison said, I said, see what we can do to explore some grants and things like that so we can, you know, get it done. If it's not this year, maybe next year. I know that the lowering of the water is instrumental in making it cost effective, but from our end, and I'm sure you would agree, that if it's going to happen again 5 years from now, we're going to be standing here 5 years from now, we're going to have to dredge again. So we want to make sure that it's a permanent solution.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just jump on that, where I think where former Council President Mulligan had stated that this was done last in the 70s, and here we are almost 48 years later from that. I don't know how it would exceed and go back to what it was before we were to remediate the issue that here in 5 years. I don't know what plan or what information you received that would potentially happen based on the amount of time frame that took place to where we're at now, the increasing shoreline that's there. And just so you know, that the letter that you're talking about was a letter that was on February 11th that we just received.
A week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he didn't give it to us. We just got it now. Ironically, they had called and, you know, whatever the error was for not distributing it to us from the mayor giving it to us. So we were we didn't have too much knowledge of what was going on. We weren't briefed on any of this stuff that's here until you had reached out, and then we requested the letter that was sent from Mayor Gruder to our mayor that was also copied to the council that we didn't receive. So I apologize not having too much information for you tonight, but we're trying to get as much as we can together.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Give you some updates and things to share.
Council's goal this evening was to come here tonight and give you some of the facts and open up a dialogue in hopes that our towns could work together as we do all the time.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Mayor,
I think that was happening. I think that dialogue is happening.
Would it be fair to maybe allow Mrs. Ferrante to communicate with Mr. Fiera from Fiera Engineering, which is the borough's engineer?
I already authorized that she could speak to the town engineer and work with them. I already authorized that.
And can we be kept apprised of those communications?
Sure.
Thank you.
Council President?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just had a question for our engineer. You mentioned that there's runoff from Route 80 that feeds into Parks Lake.
Yes.
What is the content of runoff from a highway like?
Yeah.
Excuse me. I was just asking.
And Mr. Puzia, our Mayor Puzia, I'm sorry. Just so that you have a difference of opinion now since your March 1st letter?
A difference of opinion on what?
Well, it says that there was no meeting needed because you weren't going to do anything.
Correct, at this point.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
A meeting with the council and the administration until we figure out what route we're going. That asks, well, hold on, can I finish?
Yeah, please.
That letter that you have in your hand was given to me. I spoke with Mayor Gruder about it. I told him that our engineers are speaking, that we're not ready to do a project immediately. So there's not, that letter, you want to read that letter? What that says? It asks for a committee to be put together or to meet with a couple council people.
It says, Dear Mayor Puzio, I wanted to update you on the borough's plans for lowering the Park Lake. By the end of the month, we expect to receive written commitments from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, regarding the plan submitted for reconstruction of the dam known as Fox Lake Dam. At this point, it is unlikely that Park Lake will be lowered in the spring of 2019. However, we are hopeful that the work will be done in this calendar year. As part of the lowering lake, we are still planning to dredge a portion of the lake on the borough side and believe this is a good time for dredging to be done on the township side as well. It is my understanding that our borough engineer has submitted a proposal to prepare the applicable DEP permit for the township so the dredging on both sides can be done with a single lowering of the lake permit. I would like to set up a meeting with you and 2 or 3 council members to discuss the status of this joint asset. Please contact Borough Clerk, Mrs. Seifert, with your available times. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and he has his number. Then it's CC to the council members, and he looked forward to meeting with you.
That's correct.
And then you responded on the 1st of March.
To Ms. Smith, correct?
Yes, you did. She had to reach out to you because we received it not from you, but from borough officials. And it just said, I spoke to Mayor Gruder about the dredging of Park Lake this year. We will not be doing it due to the cost and other factors, hence no meeting is needed.
Correct.
If and when I have a meeting, I'll let you guys know.
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, you're saying that you had something going on, or you're not having something going on?
Correct. As the mayor, I spoke with our engineer. I told her to get in touch with Rockaway Borough's engineer. It didn't seem like the project was going to go off this year due to cost, $220,000 to $400,000, unless remediation is in place. There didn't need to be a meeting at this current time with the council, with the mayor. The engineers are working together.
That's where we're at, John.
Council President.
If we can just make it real quick so we can move on.
So my question was for the township engineer. She had mentioned that the lake has runoff fed from Route 80. And my question was, what is the typical content of the runoff from a highway like Route 80 into a body of water like that?
You've got both chemical and sediment loading from Route 80, got high pHs and metals, road runoff.
And you had mentioned that if we were going to undertake any kind of project, we would have to do our own sampling on our side of the lake. Do we not otherwise sample that lake for water quality?
I'm not aware of that.
So my question is that lake, is the lake safe based on the runoff coming from Route 80? There are people, I mean, we have residents in the borough that swim on the boroughs. We have residents that swim on the borough side, but the water is the water.
Correct. The recreational purposes would be the borough.
Yes, we do get. Yeah, you guys have quarterly testing that you have to do.
And how do you sample the entire lake, or just the portion where people typically? Excuse me. Could we have one, Council President?
We can, but go ahead.
Can you?
We're getting out of the testing of water.
Right, but we have a lot of background on this, Council President.
Continue, please. Please, everybody.
To answer that question, the health department samples weekly 3 areas. 1, the beach area, 2, the swim lanes, and 3, the creek where the water comes in. So that's done weekly, and we get a report weekly.
And if there were any issues, you wouldn't allow swimming?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't let us.
Yeah.
And those contaminants are really attached to the sediment. They like to attach to the sediment material more so than being.
This is the sediment material described by the borough's recreation director, which didn't seem like it was very pleasant on the.
The sediment that's in the lake has already encroached and come into our side of the lake. The size of that lake, actually it's a pond, because anything under 100 square acres is a pond. So we call it a lake. But with that size of a piece of water, the sediments are going to be through it all the way, especially when you have the floods washing all the sediments down and over the dam and down into the river. So to think that the sediments are just settled on one spot, I find that hard to believe. They settle there during the low water time when there's not a high volume of water pushing from the small storms. When the bigger storms come in, you can see that sediment and you can see the discolor of the lake all the way down through, even on Mount Hope Road where the water's running over the road.
And you had mentioned from a financing perspective that the borough has been setting aside money. A project of this scale is a capital improvement project?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. The dam is.
The dam?
Absolutely.
And what about the dredging?
I apologize on that. No, I don't know if the dredging is considered a capital because you can't give a lifespan on dredging, and you have to have the lifespan. But I know as far as the dam work itself, that's absolutely capital.
One more question.
Make it quick, please.
Has the township, Mr. Mayor, done a cost analysis of undertaking a project like the one described by the borough on the township side?
Yes, that was one of the criteria when I spoke with Allison to come up with a potential cost. I'm going to let her speak to that.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so like I said before, there is the actual construction cost of dredging out the material and depositing it. That's estimated between, and it's highly dependent on what that samples come back at. So it could range, and how much dredging we need, like you spoke of, the volume to get to natural bed bottom. So rough estimate based on aerial photographs, sorry for the large range, but $200,000 to $400,000. Then you need design engineering costs and permitting costs, which can range in the $30,000 range. So it's a large sum item.
Mrs. Ferrante, did you formalize that cost analysis for the administration?
Explain, formalize?
Is that in a document somewhere?
Based on, I did reach out to the borough's engineer. We do have a cost estimate on engineering, and then based on my engineering analysis of it.
My question is, do you have a memo that captures all of that analysis?
Mr. Walters, please. Mr. Walters,
I
please.
had a discussion with administration, and it possibly an email.
All right, so there might be a document, perhaps an email with that. Is that something you can share with us with the details?
We'll take it under advisement, we'll see if it exists, and I'll make sure if it does exist, that Allison goes over it and make sure it's proper and it's correct.
Mrs. Ferrante, we're going to end this real quick because these officials, we have other people too in the public. Have you reached out to the contractor that will be performing the task for the borough?
No.
For dredging?
No.
Because if they're actually doing it, and if they're already involved and they have already permits that are going there, I think it would probably maybe an opportunity to ask them, because there's already moving.
I'm sorry, there's a contractor on board? There's bid doc?
Oh, you don't have it? I thought with the estimates that you had from...
With the estimates and everything we have was through the engineer. He has contractors. A job of this size has to go out to bid.
Okay. Then I apologize for that. I thought they already did from the money they had set aside for what they were trying to hit a goal.
It's because this job has to go out to bid, and because there's a time frame that the permits are only good for, you have to get the permits, get your bid, and then hire your contractors and go to work.
Okay.
What is the expiration date of the permits?
2 years?
They're 5 years.
5 years?
And do you have all of them in
yeah.
place? Do you have them
sure.
secured yet?
Everything's prepared down at the DEP.
Right.
They sent back, I apologize, maybe a month ago, a list of 9 items they wanted readdressed and revised, and they said once those were taken care of, we should be getting our permit.
And I'll just add, and then Councilman Jackson has something too. Would it be possible to share some of the information that you have over to our engineer so she can see exactly what you're doing, since it's kind of like her language?
Yes.
Not ours. Councilman Jackson?
Mr. Ferrante, you'd mentioned the range of 200 and 400,000 to dredge it, but also before we dredged it, you'd want to put in some type of catch for the... Do we have any idea what that would cost?
So the one that's going in Richard Mine Road, that's a much smaller device, and that's, in between, that's $28,000 for the actual structure itself.
Right.
Now, as you guys mentioned, there's multiple feeds that come into it, so we want the most bang for our buck. So where's the best place to put a sediment trap? And that's a structural measure. DEP loves green infrastructure. So today we discussed 4 different options of which we could apply sediment removal techniques and possibly get grant funding for these upstream.
And that would be done before the dredging?
Ideally to so we're not putting the cart before the horse. Right. So add in those costs.
Yep.
Great. Mr. Fillinger, anything you want to comment on? Well, we can always throw numbers out there until we actually get something that's there.
The option is...
Yeah, Council President.
I really want to make it real quick. I think we've taken there a lot of their time. The public are certainly...
I just wanted to thank them for coming and making the time to come and speak to us at our meeting. And I think that this council should request a formal design estimate, formal cost estimate for a project that would dovetail with the borough's project, so that we have something tangible that we can review and see what all the moving parts are here.
Absolutely, and just send thanks to Mayor Bruder as well. Apologize not receiving the memo that he had. He can directly send us an email, and the clerk can send it out amongst all the council members so we can get it and any information that you have. But I'm sure the connection between Mr. Fierro and Mrs. Ferrante and some of your officials and our officials and our mayor, of course, maybe we can see and do an analysis that's there, and we can start planning. I mean, it isn't like we can just go and do this tomorrow, obviously, but there's some...
Sure, we can argue also with
And that's our plan, to do something. We want it to be as cost effective as possible. We don't want to have a repeat of having to dredge down the line. We want to make sure that it's done right. Timing isn't always the best. I know that you're lowering the water, but we are looking at it. The administration is looking at it. We didn't just dismiss it. So we are. Obviously, you can see our engineer had a pretty detailed report as to what she's looked into. So it's not being dismissed. I can tell you that.
Thank you very much for having us tonight.
Gentlemen, thank you very much too. I appreciate all the information and what you had, and I'll make sure.
Yeah, they want to ask questions.
You know what? If we can make it pretty quick, go ahead, you guys. You want to come up to the microphone real fast?
I'll start talking now.
Yeah, just real quick though, if you could.
Very quick. I work for the Morris County Park Commission. I'm Kathy Kramer.
Hi, Ms. Kramer.
Morris County Park Commission. We have Silas Connet Park up in Kinnelon. We just drained the lake, rebuilt the dam, wildly successful. Parks Lake is near and dear to the hearts of many, many people. It is the healthiest thing that has ever happened to Rockaway Township. Do what you must do to make this work. Because there's runoff from Route 80, I have no idea who you would ask, but federal funding, maybe? Somebody look into that? No idea? And probably the most important question of all that, I don't know if anybody actually asked, but maybe you gentlemen know, what's our timeline? How soon is the dam going to fail? How much time do you guys have to volley this crap around before we actually have to make a decision?
The DEP wants it done sooner than later, and we were told that if it's not done and we don't give them plans to their satisfaction, that ultimately they can make us drain the lake. Until such time,
when?
Plans are
a month from now, this summer?
I don't see it. I would like to, hopefully we're like to see the work done in the fall. But I don't see them making us drain the lake because we don't have the permits and the plans and everything in hand anytime soon.
But the structural integrity of the dam for right now is just fine.
I'm confident in it for right now.
Okay, I mean, obviously you would have had it blocked off.
There's no emergency currently that exists that's there.
Really, my question is, and how soon will it become an emergency?
Yeah.
I don't see we have falling over anytime soon.
That's good news because I was just walking over today.
Okay. When they look at the design this for, is it 30 inches or 3 feet of water over the normal height of the water, right?
The maximal probable storm.
Right.
So.
Which at that point, water is running down Mount Hope, it's running down Lakeside, and so it would take a massive storm, but that's the parameters we have to do. I don't see it happening anytime soon. It's been there for.
It has been. Also, while I'm up here, just a phenomenal job to both sides. You guys keep the park fantastic. And even in a snowstorm, you guys don't go home until the park road is plowed. And my dogs recognize that one gentleman, I don't know, Township or Borough, that handed out the biscuits.
Yeah.
My dogs know him.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Sir, did you want to come up too?
No, I was just.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but time frame was.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Again, extend the thank you to Mayor Gruder as well. Now, Mr. Press, I'm recognizing you, but I have Dr. McLaughlin to come up, for the superintendent of the school. So if I can just put one more before you, if that's okay. Is that all right? Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you to the council, to the mayor, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you tonight. And I'd also like to take this opportunity, since it's my first chance to do so, for the strong partnership that's existed since I arrived in July with the township. And particularly, I'd like to, in regard to the issue that I'm speaking about tonight, would like to thank the mayor, the business administrator, the assistant business administrator, and the chief of police for the work that they have done in consulting and designing a program that we feel will be of great benefit to the school district. The New Jersey School Boards Association School Security Task Force was convened in response to the Sandy Hook massacre in 2014 and issued a report that stated that the employment of SROs, school resource officers, is the preferred model for a law enforcement presence in a school building. Also in 2014, the Governor's Security Task Force, charged with studying school security, stressed that the best practice in school safety and security would entail the use of SROs exclusively. What does an SRO do? Some individuals think that they may just stand guard at the doors of the school, but contrary to that notion, they provide assistance and programs for peer mediation and peer leadership. They instruct and provide specialized short-term programs that involve a range of topics, such as security, crime prevention, drug and alcohol education, criminal and juvenile justice system, and related topics. They take necessary action regarding trespassers, suspicious persons and conditions, the illegal use of sale and distribution of controlled dangerous substances. They look out for disruptions and disturbances, criminal offenses, and report significant action, occurrences, and conditions. They recommend measures to protect the school and personal property. They assist our school personnel in dealing with emergencies. And they assist in truancy investigations. And they provide an opportunity for students who want to speak privately with the officer and develop a trusting and positive relationship between law enforcement and with youth. The most recent available data from the 2018 report by the National Center for Educational Statistics cites that for every dollar invested in a program for an SRO, $11.13 of social and economic value was created. The report lists numerous benefits of the program that includes the prevention or minimization of property damage in the school and surrounding areas, prevention of student injuries and even death due to violence, drug overdoses, of the need for schools to call 911, reduction of the likelihood that a student will get a criminal record, the increase of the likelihood that students, particularly those with mental health issues, will get the help they need from social service and from healthcare systems, and an increase in feelings of safety among students and staff. Presently, as you know, we are a member district of the Morris Hills community, and that's made up of Denville, Rockaway Borough, Wharton, Morris Hills High School, and Morris Knolls High School. Presently, Denville has 3 full-time officers, 1 in each school. They are Class 3 officers. Rockaway Borough has a Class 3 officer. Wharton has 1 Class 3 officer. Morris Hills High School has a full-time SRO, and Morris Knolls High School has an SRO. We would like to join our partner districts in this best measure and best practice of student safety and join with the town in hiring a school resource officer. The town and our district have a tradition of working together. We have shared contracts for things such as garbage disposal, municipal fueling, and shared facility for school buses. But the shared service agreement that we contemplate now together is a watershed moment. It's a time to come together around our community's most important possession, our children, and our commitment to their safety. I'd like to commend both the board and the municipality for this proposal now, at a time not immediately following a Parkland, a Sandy Hook, a Virginia Tech, or a Columbine. We have enough history to say where we should be, and we don't need to react to a tragedy to know that our best course of action must be this. At the same time, no one anticipated one of the events I just mentioned, a day before or even an hour in advance. I'm anxious to see through those steps that are required to make this occur now. And that is why I've asked the board, and I'll repeat the same to this body, to put this in place as soon as possible in our present school year and not to wait until September. I know you have many priorities, and I express my sincere appreciation for making this among your first. And at this point, I'd love to take any questions that you might have.
Mr. McLaughlin, do you have the resolution that you passed just recently?
I can certainly forward that to you.
We weren't aware. I know I wasn't. I can't speak for everybody. I only saw it as a caption of a video that somebody had sent it to me, a PTA member. So I had no idea of that taking place, even knowing that you were coming here to present that. But I know that there was a resolution that your board had passed with regard to that. We haven't been kept apprised from our administration of the members that you said. I do know that May 11th of 2018, your business administrator, Mrs. Palmieri, was contacted by our former council president in regards to this very particular issue. And since then, we haven't received a response from that email that was sent out to the school. I know that there was other members of this council that were copied on that. And again, we had no idea coming forward we'd have a little bit more prepared. We're doing the budget right now, which is not in the budget for any SROs that I'm aware of that we've seen, that we have there. I believe, and maybe Mayor Puzio and Councilman Jackson can recall, you guys, I think, used to have security in school and you took it out. You weren't there in 2011, 2010? Council.
I was an SRO.
No. I'm talking.
When I was in the Board of Ed.
Yeah, we're talking about Board of Ed
Board of
members,
Ed.
yes. And I believe Mayor, I'm sorry? Your mic.
I don't recall.
And Mayor Puzia, maybe you remember, we had.
I can explain.
Well, I'm just saying we didn't have it at the time in 2011.
We didn't have what?
We had a police officer in the school who then took out. The school had taken out, there was lack of funds for security for that.
Our budget, here, some time ago, the budgets for schools, for the Board of Education were voted on. And we had unarmed security guards, that a lot of them were retired cops. We had one in each school. We had a full-time SRO in the middle school at the time. The budget at one point went down, it was voted down. The budget was voted down, the school budget, and cuts were made by, I wasn't on the council at the time, neither was anyone up here.
You were on the board.
I was on the Board of Ed.
Right.
The council had to make an adjustment to the budget. They took a certain percentage of monies out of the budget, and obviously, when you're dealing with the Board of Education budget, education comes first. That's your first priority. So we had to strip the security element out of the schools. And then when Governor Christie came up with the 2% cap, if you recall, I don't know, remember it was 2010, 2011, sometime around then, what happened is budgets stopped being voted on. As long as you stayed within the 2% cap, you didn't have to go out and vote for a Board of Education budget. And we haven't put law enforcement back in the schools. Now this initiative, I want to speak about it for 1 second. When I was a councilman, prior to becoming mayor, I started on an initiative. I had a plan that I tried to introduce, and it was one of the programs that we're going to be adopting now. And you know the details a little bit better because I put you in touch with Nick DeMoro from LEAD. So my hopes was that we were going to have a new program, LEAD, which is Law Enforcement Against Drugs. It's a little bit more, it's an evidence-based program. We're going to have that component of having an SRO in the school that's going to be a trained SRO that's going to work with that. We talk about the opioid addiction. Big part of what I feel is you want to get to people, want to get to children before they become addicted. And I think that by doing this, by putting an SRO in the school to deal with some of the social and emotional issues, to deal with the law enforcement component and the safety component, as you know, even apart from the opioid issue, from the addiction issue, there's a safety component. We talk about Parkland. I think it covers, it's comprehensive by doing that. I think it serves our community very well.
With that,
Council President,
if I may finish though. And I thank you very much. The only thing I disagree, I think security and the safety of our children is far greater of an urgency than education sometimes, especially in the trying times that we have right now with Parkland, Sandy, as well as VTAC, and of course Columbine, which was many years ago. That was there. Your plan, I mean, we have 5 regular elementary schools from Stony Brook, DBO, Birchwood, Dwyer, and KDM, and then we have Copeland. For what my understanding was in the past, and I think even what's being projected potentially now, was it was only going to be in Copeland School. And then the other 5 schools would not have that SRO. Now I know Chief Wagner from Denville, who's now retired, was a heavy push of what they were doing, as well as Doug Shear in Rockaway Borough, and now being Chief Peppermint, that are pushing of what they have that's over there. You know, again, we have no knowledge of what's there or a plan that we have in place that's moving forward. And I know that Mayor Puzio keeps pushing LEAD, but we also have Hope One, where Sheriff Gannon, and regarding the opiate crisis that's there, has been somebody that's really been on the ground hammering and assisting those with those types of addictions and trying to get to people before they get to a serious level. I don't know what the amount of arrests involving with drugs and opioids are in the elementary schools from K through 5, and then going to Copeland from 6th, 7th, and 8th. that are there for those stats to see where you would move SROs or have them that's there. But I think in the past, the school board, Mayor Puzio, they would reimburse the township for the portion of what the officer would be in there. And I believe at the time it was like maybe 50, 60 grand, and then whatever the amounts were after the school period, that officer can then do his routines until his shift was completed after his shift at the school was there. So that's something to discuss too. But we don't even know who's paying for what. Is it something that the school is putting in?
Sure, that's all in the, and that is in the hands of the township. And the board resolution, which was voted on, which you watched the other day, indicated that the board has budgeted $70,000 towards this, which is a higher amount than a Class 3 officer would cost. Basically, it's the amount of 2 Class 3 officers towards an SRO, which is a full-time SRO versus 2 part-time folks, which we think is the better way to go. It's consistency within the school, and it's also someone who is an active officer, not retired, and someone who the township can certainly take advantage of when school is not in session and can patrol. A Class 3 officer is restricted to the school. So I see the advantage for both for the township and for the school district. In regard to the other schools, since you mentioned that, in discussions with the chief and with the other officers who have contributed their expertise, the plan would be for the patrols that previously have done the perimeter of our elementary schools and have visited Copeland on a daily basis, since there would be an SRO devoted to Copeland, and Copeland also where really the greatest amount of police detention has been. That would free up those other officers who are on patrol to not only go around and drive around the perimeter of the building, but to visit each school on a daily basis. And so the chief indicated to me that that would be something that he would commit to as part of this plan. During the time period that we would develop a second step of most likely hiring a Class 3 officer in year 2. The entities that you mentioned, such as Denville, have increased their police presence, but they've done that over time.
Sure.
And this is our first step, but it's certainly part of the plan.
But when we were talking about the SROs, I think the biggest thing, and even like, again, I think Chief Wagner being the innovator, moving forward with it and being very proactive of it, the retired police officers that would hold that class for the SROs, we weren't paying pensions, we weren't paying benefits. What you are trying to propose of having somebody that's an officer, we would be paying those costs. Where if we had an SRO or a retired officer, we would be saving that much more money, maybe potentially using those savings to put another SRO in another school.
Yeah, and we thought long and hard about that. There are things, as you mentioned before, that are priorities, and we want our first step, and this is much the same as the Morris Hills School District has done with both Morris Hills High School and Morris Knolls High School, where they feel an active police officer is the best way to begin the program. We think our second step, when we come to a time of working with the elementary schools, may be Class 3 officers. We'll revisit that at that time, but we fought as our initial entry that really is one school resource officer, particularly someone with middle-aged school students who could build a relationship and could be a consistent presence, because that's a big part of the whole SRO philosophy, would be very, very important.
Yeah, they say the trust that built between the students and that SRO can somewhat lead to other concerns and whatnot that can be addressed at an earlier stage rather than after they've happened.
Absolutely.
And the one other additional question I have, and then I'm going to leave it to the rest of the members here, is that in some schools, in whether in the state or outside of the state, they utilize components within the facility as a structure, as a safe area. You have an entrance and into another entrance into the school. Now the SROs, I understand it's your community, with your building community within the students that are there, and the safety provided to the students, but also the attempt of somebody coming into the school, you know, where they could be at one end of the school, not where the entrance area is of that person trying to come in unlawfully. And then, has there been anything that you've been thinking about to implement into the schools to have like a safe area of entrance where you come in, then you come in again?
Well, those safe entry areas are great if the intruder is polite and comes through the front door. And I'm not being sarcastic with that. That's my big concern, is that we're expecting something very appropriate from someone who's not going to be appropriate with us. So I know that there's a tremendous amount of investment, and some school districts have invested in vestibules with bulletproof glass and with slideways where you can deliver materials for your kids through a protected area. We have, Copeland, as you know, is a large facility with many doors and many windows at a ground level height. The ability to really protect that through creating a vestibule, we've discussed that, and we've felt at this point that is not, it's not in our best interest to pursue that. We'd rather devote our monies to manpower right now and to the presence, right?
Any other members on the dais? Sure.
Council President, is it Dr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
I heard Dr. McLaughlin reference an agreement. Do we have a copy of a proposed agreement?
I'm not aware of any agreement whatsoever. I haven't been informed.
Is the clerk aware of an agreement that was given to be distributed to the council?
No.
Were you not given?
Excuse me.
I'm trying to answer your question.
Well, I think the question was answered. We don't have an agreement.
The
We don't have a
question is not
proposed
answered.
agreement.
The question has not been answered. I asked the administration 2 weeks ago to put this on the agenda for discussion, and I asked for something to be, a document to be forwarded to you guys, so there would be a little bit of a precursor to this tonight. If that was not done, I don't know why.
I just asked the administration, and the other thing is, this was just happening with the school. So, I mean, you've had conversations throughout the course of 2018 to where we're at right now. I had no knowledge.
I had Council President Kelly, I had a conversation a few weeks ago to put this together. It's my job as mayor, as the administration, to put this together. We have to start somewhere.
Sure.
Here we are, starting somewhere.
No, I thought it was something that was taking place within the last year, but I don't want to get into that kind of debate here.
Well, it's not a debate. I brought Mr. McLaughlin. He wanted to come and speak to the council. This is positive stuff. I don't want to debate either.
You know what?
We're here now. We'll move forward.
Mr. Mayor, if we could, you could just send us the agreement that you have?
You don't have it.
No. Can you please send us the agreement that you have?
Okay.
Council President, I also heard Dr. McLaughlin reference a plan. Did the clerk's office receive a plan to distribute to the council?
No, you didn't, because you asked what my plan was, and I relayed to you what the plan was. But that's been verbal. The board has not asked me to submit a written plan. They've been satisfied with the explanation that I just provided. I'm happy to provide that again. I'm happy to put it in paper if it would help the council move forward on this.
Just so that we're on the same page, so that we can have something to dedicate to look at rather than something verbal. Is there anything on this side that Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, I just want to make a general comment. I know all three of my children went to Morris Hills, and for a long time, Officer Haig, a full-time officer for the borough, was the SRO there. And the impact he had on the student body there was incredible. And I think it's a great idea to have a full-time active officer that has, maybe age-appropriate children in that role. It makes, now that he's gone, he's retired, there's a whole change in the school for sure, so.
Is there anybody else on this side? Councilman Sackett, go ahead.
Thank you for coming. I actually want to get this moving forward. I have 2 children in Copeland right now, and 2 in Stony Brook, and whatever we got to do to get this going, let's get this going quickly and have it on the agenda, hopefully for the next council meeting. Thank you.
Just before Councilman Jeniak, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Quinn, is there anything you had to add? You've been patiently waiting for them. Councilman Jeniak?
Dr. McLaughlin, you referenced that the school board had set aside funds in their budget for this purpose. Are you essentially looking for the township to essentially take those funds that the school board have set aside for this purpose?
The way that this has to work according to law is the township must hire the officer and supervise the officer, whether it's a Class 3 or a active SRO. The Board of Ed would forward its funds to the township to offset our part of the contribution.
And the school board has budgeted sufficient funds to cover the
We've
entire
budgeted
cost?
$70,000 since the beginning of this year.
Which is projected to cover the entire cost?
Which is what our contribution has been projected to be since I arrived. It was as I mentioned to you before, that was based on the combination of what two Class 3 officers would have cost, which would have been about $35 apiece.
But it will cover the cost?
It will not cover the cost of a full-time officer. A full-time officer makes over $70,000 in salary and benefits. But that would be up to the township at who they hired and at what rate.
So there's a residual cost, which we'll see once we see the agreement. Presumably that agreement says the township.
Yes, and that's what's been worked out with the business administrators and with the assistant business administrator and our business administrator.
And how long have you been working on that?
We've been in discussion with this, and I think actually began this discussion before I arrived with the former mayor. That's how long the discussion has been going on, but it came to this point where we felt we had something, a plan that we could put forward.
Mr. Freeland, or Councilman Freeland?
So basically what we got to set up is a shared service agreement.
You would think about that, depending on how it works. I would imagine so. I think we would probably try to see what Denville, the borough, I know Montville just had somebody.
Yeah, what offsets.
See what they did, and then we can probably duplicate that.
It is a shared service agreement,
yes,
and it's a very typical piece that's been done. Our law firm put a proposal together based on what's commonly happening between townships and districts. This has become commonplace at this point.
Yeah, and we can even look at a prior agreement that we had with the school to see, and there's that now it's an SRO, which is now something that's new. We can apply it and see that.
It's something for the children. It's got to be worked out.
Yeah.
That's the future of the town.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying that's the future of the town. So, I mean, this should be a priority. An agreement.
Council President, I just have a question. I may have missed something in your presentation. You mentioned Rockaway Borough, Wharton, and Danville. Are they full-time officers, or are they Class 3s?
No, I did mention it, but maybe I didn't articulate it clearly. They are Class 3 officers. Mars Hills High School has an SRO, however, and Mars Knowles High School.
Yeah, they've had one for many, many years. Yeah, yes.
They also have paid officers after school, active officers.
Yeah, so they have the Class 3. I know Mars Township just hired Class 3 too, and quite a few other people are hiring Class 3. Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Mrs. Smith?
I just wanted to say, I believe when you hire Class 3 officers, they can only be retired for what? How many? 6 months? So they're
up to within 3 years.
Oh, within 3 years. I'm sorry.
Certified, everything like that.
So, okay, thank you.
Yes, and the other important distinction, I think, from the council's perspective, is a Class 3 officer cannot be used in any other capacity except in the school. So there's no flexibility for the township to utilize that officer when schools are closed. They can only function within the school setting.
But just so we are clear, though, we could potentially have, for the $70,000 you have allocated for an officer, we can get 2 Class 3s, 35 apiece, and be able to cover more ground with that. So it is an avenue to look at. We need to look at our options and discuss that. Go ahead, Council President.
I don't see the chief here, but for years we had drug education in Copeland. And it just stopped. I know we have officers that go to all the other schools, correct? It's still in
we're transitioning, as the mayor mentioned before, we're transitioning from the DARE program, which was a strictly 5th grade program, to LEAD. And the great thing about LEAD is that it will begin in the 5th grade, but go through the 7th grade. So we'll have a 5th, 6th, 7th grade progressive curriculum. And then that leads into what our alliance, I'm sure you know what a great alliance we have in town. They provide an 8th grade. So it culminates with that. So we're really seeing a four-year program that we'll be running next year that will be based on updated research and updated curriculum, Not only that the officer will deliver, but that our own teachers will be trained in that program as well.
So then I'm to understand that the current officers that are teaching DARE are going to be trained in lead? And go from there
that could
up
be,
to
yes, they could. They're certainly
Copeland.
They'll be a portion of the program, but not the whole program. I think unlike DARE, which is truly taught by the officer exclusively, this is more of a shared instruction.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Make it real quick.
Dr. McLaughlin, you mentioned that the school board has been working on this since prior to your arrival last summer.
No, what I think I mentioned is that I've been in dialogue with the township since prior to my arrival, which was very nice that I had the invitation to come out and begin speaking about this, but the board certainly has been supportive, and I've been updating them in regard to the work that we've been doing.
I remember you mentioning it during your interviewing process over at Copeland School. You were really active with that and had a lot of knowledge and information with when you were doing the interviewing and talking to the members in the lunch cafeteria at the time.
Thank you.
You did a great job there.
Yeah. So my question, Council President, if the school board has been working on this for so long and in communication with the administration, Mr. Mayor, we received the budget 2 weeks ago. Did you budget for this in the budget that you presented to us?
Sir, why would I budget for it until we accepted it? It's a shared service agreement through the police department. Chief McLaughlin will be putting a senior officer that's an SRO in the middle school. The school system, the Board of Education, is going to be splitting the cost of the salary and fringe. Comes out to around $70,000. So what will happen is, what we explained, that officer is going to be in the school full-time, and they're going to be working as a full-time SRO. In the summers, they'll be back out working for Rockaway. If they need to get pulled, the chief said that with the shared service agreement, that they'll be allowed to be pulled if there's emergencies and whatnot.
So your proposed budget that you delivered to us 2 weeks ago, does it contain funding allocated for this position?
There is no funding, it's staffing. We're going to be getting money from the school system.
Okay. Right, but there's a residual amount. Did you budget anything for this position in the budget you presented?
What residual amount?
Mayor Puzio?
Yeah.
Can we just, we can wrap that up at our budget meeting that we have over there? We're not going to go down that road.
Thank you.
The only thing, though, we can talk about is the SROs, though. It seems like you already have an idea. I'm looking at a 2-for-1 amount versus 1.
I can tell you that a Class 3 officer will not be as effective as Dr. McLaughlin just stated.
Well,
in the middle school.
Are you an SRO, a Class 3?
I'm a Class 3. I work through a K-5 district. I know what the SROs do in the middle school and in the high school. Much more effective.
Mrs. Smith, you had a question?
No, I just wanted to clarify that the SRO would be an existing officer, correct? Not a new hire?
That's correct.
Thank you.
But my question would be, would that officer need to be replaced with a new hire? Because you're taking staffing away from the PD, which...
I'm going to follow Mr. Kelly's recommendation. We're going to discuss it at the budget meeting when the chief's here. That's a good idea.
Anything in ending?
No, thank you very much.
You did a fantastic job. Thank you very much for your passion for safety. He can't control it, though. Okay, Mr. Press. No. Sorry about that, but again, thank you for being patient with that.
Okay, two things. Okay, according to an article written by Gene Myers in the Morristown Daily Record and posted on NorthJersey.com, Jeremy Jedniak and his handpicked financial review board are of the opinion that the Rockaway Township Police Department needs to be smaller. Mr. Jedniak has used our fine officers as his personal bodyguards at public appearances and here at meetings. Now that our police department has apparently outlived its usefulness to him, he has turned on like a mad dog. We do not live in some little hamlet. This is not Mayberry. Rockaway Township covers over 45 square miles. We can't just have a handful of police officers covering and protecting us. I hope that Mr. Jedniak doesn't need our police department someday for a real emergency, not to protect them at a football event, not because he's afraid of the citizens who attend these very council meetings and make their feelings known. And when Mr. Jedniak asks to call the police department for something,
I hope he doesn't receive a response, something to the effect of, sorry, we're in the other end of town because of budget cuts, it'll be a while before we can get to you. And a different topic. Finally, these meetings will never, excuse me, will never be the same without our friend Joy. Festival Day won't be the same, election days won't be the same, and life won't be the same without our friend Joy.
Mr. Press, real quick. Thank you about those comments with Mrs. Weinberg. Did you have an opportunity to read the Financial Review Board report?
I did not.
You did not.
I saw the article.
Yeah, I know. If you saw the article and you read the report, unfortunately, there's a lot of errors that are in that document.
Okay.
And if you were here at the meeting that we had prior, I had asked our CFO, our business administrator, as well as our mayor about any potential cuts or demotions or furloughs and whatnot. I know that our chief has been passing around that information, and another officer has been doing the same. Unfortunately, it's not true, and it's been documented on the record for that. So I'm sorry that the article kind of misled you in a sense, but if you looked at the report, it was really just a comparison of other towns that were there, police force.
Those towns don't have malls. They don't have the population that we have.
They do, actually. There's populations, it's reports. You got to remember, we have 48 square miles, right? We have Picatinny is 15 of those. We have open bodies of land. And excuse me, we have open space and stuff. So we're down to like almost 30 square miles that are there. But comparative to the other areas that are there, and they're very busy, and they have 80, 46, 202, Route 10. There were some comparisons there, but it's really difficult to make an exact comparison from one to the other. And, you know, as I made a comment was that, you know, inside of the township, we've grown. The mall has expanded, Walmart, Target, which wasn't there back in '77, and where we're at right now, but our police force has kind of been somewhat of a lateral. I think in our budget, we have 53 officers that are there. I believe on the article, it said 47, which is not correct, and I think at one time we had 60. And we hired police officers for the mall. We lost those police officers because the contract went awry. They weren't getting the services that they were paid for. So there's a lot of factors that are in there that aren't part of that report, but the report specifically does not say about any cuts or anything taking away or changing command staff. Unfortunately, it was a false narrative that was supplied around from some individuals for whatever reason. And I can get you that report if you wish, or you can review it. And you know what? You can send an email to the Financial Review Board with any of your suggestions or concerns. Being a former council member, looking through budgets 4 years in a row, you might have some things that are there too as well. And it's not anybody on the dais that requests 3 police officers here. That's staffing through either our police chief or our mayor, just so that the record's straight.
Yeah, but it never happened before.
You know what? Unfortunately, we don't have a say in it. It's going through administration and the chief. So I thank you with that.
Council President, with regard to the Financial Review Board, if you recall, the Financial Review Board, which prepared its report, disseminated the report to the entire council and made a request to have that report posted on the township's transparency page. It's been weeks now, and that report is still not posted on the transparency page.
And that report will not be posted on the transparency page
Mr.
until
Press,
it's vetted for accuracy.
Mr. Mayor, I thank you very much, and you can always either Oprah it or you can request it through the clerk's office if you want a copy of that. You can ask for it directly. I won't make it go through Oprah, of course, because it is public record for that. It was disseminated from administration down to the police department, certain individuals. There's no reason why you can't get it as well. You know what, I don't know, but when you read that report, and then you can maybe contact the editor or the author of the article, and you can make your own assessment on that, but I don't think anybody's going to contest that. I agree, ladies. So with that, get the report, and then you can look at it, but it's wrapped up, and the story's a little off. Next, we have John Nab. I'm sorry. What's that? How you doing, all right?
Pretty good.
Good.
John Nab, 159 Valley Drive. I just wish to approach the council because we had a very productive meeting with Dave and Brian last Friday for the Tech Advisory Board. We discussed some lingering issues. We pretty much just kind of got the ball rolling from last year when it was Mr. Brennan's committee and into this year. With that being said, I would like to request one more member besides myself and Mark Frega. I believe that I think that would add a little bit more breadth of knowledge, although we did have a good meeting. We don't, I wouldn't say it's anything urgent. We're probably not going to have a meeting, certainly not anytime before probably the end of April, I would think. So for May or June, but just something to consider.
Do you have somebody in mind?
No, I do not.
Okay. Because we've been posting some stuff for notices for people to be part of multiple boards, Board of Adjustments, Planning Board, Finance Review Board, and the same thing, the IT that you're in there. Congratulations, by the way, on your position.
Thank you.
But if you have anybody that you can recommend or you know that has an interest with that, because we have been putting some time, and maybe Mr. Mayor, if you could, maybe we can post that on Facebook and our town website page. Maybe we can get that done in the next couple of days. Administration's pretty busy, but they can then get to that pretty quickly.
Sure.
It's a simple post of some sort.
Right.
And then maybe you have your own Facebook or whatever have you, of any interest that you can do that. And then if you have a name, you can either email it to administration or you can email it to the clerk. And then we can put it on the agenda and we can make that appointment for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
There's one other thing.
Go ahead.
The ordinance 019-04, that was, I guess, not passed tonight. I'm just wondering, just out of curiosity, since the last meeting had, I think, what was it, 3 or so other salary ordinances that were passed, I'm wondering that, are those going to have to go up again after the budget comes in, after...
No, those ordinances that were there are for contractual employees and police of higher rank and police officers. And because of the contracts and agreements that we had going into December and early part of the year, those components are with the contracts in order the mayor then signs that and everything else is completed with that. So that's why those were passed for the contract process for Council 6 and for the police as well.
Okay.
So that had moved forward, and I think the only component, Mr. Mayor, on that agreement that we had was you were going to withdraw the per complaint. That was one component that we needed to have done.
That was once the contract was signed.
I
don't know if it's been signed.
I believe the president of FOP had provided that signed copy of that last week, I believe.
Okay, once that's taken care of.
Yeah, we can move forward with that.
I apologize, it's been a little, I had some issues.
Sure.
So we'll get on it.
Great. Anything else?
Nope.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jekyll? No, you're good? Thank you. Do you have anything to say about Joy? Did you know Joy?
About what?
Did you know Joy?
No.
Mrs. Degman?
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I just have a couple of questions regarding the agenda today. I'd like to know when the February 12th and February 26th minutes will be online. I thought we were going to try and have them quicker online so that we could look at them. And my other piece of discussion is the ordinance 019-07. Section 1 says you're going to delete the whole section regarding regular meetings. I mean, where does that leave us with knowing when the regular meetings are going to be? Because there's nothing in there that's going to tell us when our regular meetings are going to be.
Well, your reorg does that. It won't be in the ordinance. Every year they change.
Well, they've always been on the second and fourth Tuesday.
But the dates are going to be different every single year.
Yeah, but it doesn't say at all when it's going to be. It just says regular meetings, delete that whole section. So how are we as citizens going to know when the reorg meeting is, when the regular meetings are going to be?
They're noticed in the paper. They're also noticed on the bulletin boards and the website too.
And Council President, those are also determined by statute. And the issues that we were having is that the code was, first of all, unclear, and second of all, restricting our abilities to schedule those meetings under the existing statutes. So state statute still exists and still determines when the reorg meeting happens, and at the reorg meeting is when the schedule of meetings for the remainder of the year is adopted.
I would disagree with you, Councilman Jeniak.
And it is up for discussion too. It's up for discussion.
The other thing is on 019-8. Don't mind me, but I kind of go through things and I do like to correct spelling and...
The typo that you see.
Yes,
right?
it says a speak addressing the council, should be speaker.
Well,
and I know it's correct the way it's written now.
That's right. I don't know who first, Mr. Waters or you, because you did the same thing.
And so to answer that question, that is exactly how it's written in the code, and that's part of the discussion that we'll get to when we get to that.
Okay. The other thing is, I'm very happy to see that you recognized Joy Auerbach for her dedication, not only to the community in White Meadow Lake, but also to the community of Rockaway Township at large. Many of you don't know all that she did, and she did it with a generous heart. She never had arguments. She would have arguments with people, but when she left the room with you,
that's right,
you were back and you were friends. And I just think that maybe as a town now, we need to take some of the givingness that she showed us through her life and maybe do away with some of the vendettas that are going on right now and follow her leadership.
And you know, Ms. Degman, there was a time in November when I came, I had to pay my quarterly taxes. I hadn't seen her when she was doing her Meals on Wheels. The weather was raining out, it was horrible. And she'd always say, hey, how's it doing? You know, she always had her little common thing that she'd say. And she would have to bend over pretty low to kiss her and hug her and stuff like that. But I was, I was complaining. I was actually doing a septic and coming there to pay my taxes. And I was really bummed out about it. And she says, you know what, eventually the sun's gonna come out. And she always had a positive spin to do that. You know, she was very optimistic on everything that was going on there. So no matter how bad it was gonna be good the next time. So thank you for those comments. Mrs. Coleman? Mr. Waters? Come on down.
My turn to be grumpy, or my turn? Jim Waters, 48 Seneca Avenue in the Township. Mr. Council President, Council, Arpuzio, Administration, the Blue Team, and the folks who paid for it all. Good to see you here. I wasn't going to comment on that typo, but it seems to me to be a little silly to take a typo in a code and repeat it just so you're consistent, but that's neither here nor there.
It's up for discussion, though, to go over some of the things.
What is silly is to try to eliminate any reference to a regular meeting when a reorg meeting is a special case of a regular meeting. And for a Faulkner town, such as we are, there's no reference to reorg meeting in the state statute. We brought this up 2 or 3 times. It keeps coming up. It suggests we should have a reorg meeting on the 1st, but for a town of our size, our construction, there's no legal requirement.
Are you part of New Jersey FOG, NJ FOG?
Sorry?
Are you part of NJ FOG?
No. Why?
But you're not a FOG follower or part of the organization FOG?
No.
Oh, okay. The only reason I said I thought that you were.
No.
And on that, they recommend for the 1st of...
They recommend it, but it's not in the statute.
I understand.
So let's not go there. All right? Sorry, I didn't mean it to sound like that. It just doesn't make sense to me. I am not quite sure what direction to go, and I appreciate the announcement that there is a report that was put out by Mr. Wittig's committee that we can look at, because I would much rather read the actual report than respond to a Daily Record article. With respect to Gene Myers, who does a pretty good job with what he's got, I'd rather read the actual report and look at the facts and figures in there.
Would you want to send to you?
Pardon me?
You want it sent to you?
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll have the clerk do that for you. We have your email.
Ms. Clipperton has my information.
Yeah.
And I just another thought from the discussion tonight. You might understand the council can't post anything on the Rockaway Township site in and of itself, that they have to go through the administration to post anything.
Yeah.
So when you post minutes and agendas, it goes through the administration as well?
There's assistance from the administration, Mr. Mayor, to do that. As a matter of fact, if Mrs. Degman had talked about the minutes on there, have you ever looked at the posting for the Planning Board and Board of Adjustment minutes? Take a peek. I don't think they've been on there for years. I know. Well, I mean, we're being selective, but there's a lot of areas too that we rely on them to be posted for people to do that. The minutes are completed under OMA, we're compliant. But as far as them being posted on there, it's something that we can address.
The council has a Facebook page, do they not?
The administrator is the administrator of the page is the administrator, I believe, as well. Are you the administrator too?
Page?
So just Ms. Seeger is the administrator of that page?
She's the administrator of the township.
No, Facebook page. We're talking about the Facebook
reason
page.
You guys can't have a council Facebook page? I mean, there are 2 or 3 fake GOP Facebook pages already floating around. We might as well have a real Facebook page. Which does bring me to what I really wanted to talk about tonight. Over the course of the last year and a half, we've set up, the council has set up a bunch of special committees. We've had a local emergency council, an ordinance committee, a vehicle review committee, an economic development committee, a committee of the council to investigate a complaint of an employee using township equipment. We have a committee of the council we have a special committee to conduct interviews for the vacant position of municipal clerk. We have a special committee to evaluate attorneys. We have an investigatory committee. My point is, and I believe under the Open Public Records Act, that these committees that include 2 or more council people should be issuing minutes. And I haven't seen a report or minutes from any of these committees since they've been founded. I just wanted to know if I'm right in my understanding that you should be telling us what's going on? Or you just set these committees up and then drop them?
Well, committees that are not with quorum are not reliant for OPMA. There's not a requirement for minutes that are on there.
You have 2 or more council people, I believe they are.
If you read under 10.4.6 and follow through that, you might think differently.
I checked with John Schmidt. I think we disagree on it.
Okay, I do disagree with you. However, the Attorney Review Committee, I did do minutes prepared for that. Investigatory committee that you're talking about, and most of those investigatory committees that we had on those 3 different occasions, that would fall under 4069A 37.1 on the second paragraph of that. So we develop a committee that's on it, but it's investigatory. So you're not going to get anything with regard to the investigation of those.
I think you should tell us when you meet and what you discuss.
Yeah.
We'll take that up a little bit further. The other thing that I wanted to touch on were the closed meetings, where we generally state that the matters to be discussed will be disclosed to the public at the following time under the following circumstances when matters are concluded. I know that form has changed a little bit since we talked with John Schmidt.
And you're talking about 10.4-13.
If you want to be specific in the site, we can. Okay. I've noted that we've had 18 closed sessions since January 2nd of 2018. Of those closed sessions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 18 have had their minutes approved, but not released as far as I know. The balance of 11, some of them, the last 2 or 3 are still active. As far as I know, the minutes haven't been submitted, approved, or released for public review. And one of the things that NJ 40 whatever provides,
47181,
when you have concluded the matters to be discussed, you are to distribute the minutes of the meeting.
So in the minutes that you're referencing, is there a specific topic of closed session that you're referencing to?
Well, let's reference R18-28, the litigation on Morris Commons in Jersey City. Let's reference.
Can we just halt on that, Mr. Yachafano? Has that been completed with the litigation that we have as far as the settlement and everything else that we have going on that we could discuss? Yeah, so we don't have information on that. Your next one?
I've got several on here. Let's just go with the ones that
it's just easy for me to hit each one as you do it.
The ones that address the Dashian litigation rather, which has all been concluded. I would like to see the minutes of these closed meetings, what you discussed, who discussed it, and what the conclusions are. And you are required to do that.
When the matter is completed, even though, well, hold on. And I'm going to get to that. Since we had that matter that was, I think September 19th, it was dismissed with prejudice, but now we have Mayor Puzio revitalizing that particular issue. I don't know if we can really go into that right now.
He's a different litigant, is he not?
Well,
He does not look
No,
like
it's
Mary
the office of the mayor.
Yeah,
It's the office of the mayor suing
The
council.
office of mayor didn't.
Same
sue
plaintiff,
counsel.
yes.
Mayor did.
We're not going to get
Same
into that.
plaintiff,
We're not
same
gonna get into that.
defendant.
We're not going to get into that.
Okay.
Why don't we do this? It would be easier for you just to make an open request for each one of those things. You can get a response. Have you opened those minutes?
I haven't for a number of reasons. I mean, I could also file a lawsuit to get access to them if we're going to decide that some of these things are personal and we're not going to release them, or if you're not going to tell us what's going on.
And that is your prerogative. That's your prerogative to do that. Are you
I
threatening
understand
litigation
that.
now, Mr. Walters?
Well, one other thing I'd like to know, the meeting of 6/26/2018, where you approved minutes for 6/7/2018, there was no resolution, but you held a closed meeting to further discuss the Dasherson litigation, and then you ducked out the back door without adjourning the meeting. My question is that meeting still open? Or would you like to pass a resolution to actually adjourn that meeting?
Are you being
You said you
sarcastic?
did that, you left at the advice of your attorney. It's another reason I'd like to know what went on in that meeting. And I'd like to know when you're going to adjourn that meeting.
Well, the meeting is concluded, obviously.
It was not adjourned.
It's not.
No, we
it's
don't
not-
use Robert's Rules of Order.
Council
Robert's
President,
Rules of Order requires you.
The answer to that question is very straightforward.
The
answer is
Is there anything else, Mr. Waters, that you're looking for?
He's got a bunch, but that's all I'm going to cover.
You know what? If I can just make a suggestion so it'd be a little bit easier, make an open request for those documents on there.
I'd rather talk to you guys personally, see what the reactions are when we ask for.
Well, only because you had commented about potential litigation that's on there. I think it'd be probably easier if you just made it and put it in writing of what you're looking for.
So I can get turned down in writing so you can tell me that.
You know, I'd be optimistic about it rather than pessimistic about it.
Okay.
You know, but if you want to, you have your right. You can do the GRC or you can go to Superior Court and make a filing on that. Perhaps you can, you know, look at other prior decisions under the GRC and see what in fact under closed session minutes or not under closed session, things that are still pending or not pending. But once you make a request of those specific ones that you want, then we can answer them accordingly. And that'll probably be the simplest way moving forward rather than blanking everything moving forward. Like the comments thing, we still have some litigation that may be going on. So it's not
Things on the
done.
18 are still open.
But, I mean, you have information already. But make an open request, and maybe you'll be surprised at what you receive. Is there anything else?
That's it.
Thank you.
Council President.
Next, we have Mr. Dio.
Council President. On the issue, no. The question that deserves an answer that Mr. Waters asked is a meeting of a governing body, if the number of members falls below quorum, the meeting is automatically adjourned. So,
Still must be adjourned.
no, that's not the case.
We're not going to, Mr. Waters, we're not going to.
That is the answer, Council President.
We're not, we're done. We have Mr. Dio. Thank you, Mr. Waters.
Patrick Dio, 11 Valley Road. Just a couple of things. In May, the governor signed legislation that mandates paid sick leave and has a whole bunch of requirements in it. It's totally different than what used to be on the books. And every employer, including governmental bodies, have to comply with it. And I just want to know if Rockaway Township has adopted the provisions of the law that mandates the 5 paid sick leave for every full-time employee.
We complied prior to this law being enacted. If you want details?
Well, we comply prior to it. If you wanted to review it, it's all online in our policy and procedure manual and our union contracts.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. The other thing is, yesterday I attended the open public budget meeting, and I want to say thanks to the staff. It was obvious to me that they put a lot of time and effort into putting together the budget, that proposal. But I also like to thank the council members because it was obvious to me that the council members had spent a significant amount of time going through the budget and asking, I thought, very pointed questions and asking for information. So I think there was a great opportunity for council to be working with administration to put together a budget for the benefit of the township. And there was a little surprise, though. I believe the budget meetings were made public, right? They notice? Besides the Financial Review Board members being in attendance, I think I only saw 3 members of the public participating in the meeting. And to me, a $40 million proposed budget is probably one of the most important, crucial aspects of our governance. And I was very disappointed that so many people that are here tonight and in many other township meetings were not there to listen to the dialogue between the council members and administration trying to work up a budget that would be to the benefit of the township and make it an affordable township. So there is going to be 2 more meetings, right? There's another public meeting, I think, Thursday?
Correct, and Friday, yeah.
And Friday?
Yes.
At 7:30?
Correct.
Here?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're going to have a table for you for the being a member of the Financial Review Board as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Dio.
Council President, at the meeting that we had, the video was not working and there was no member of the audience here. So my question is for the administration as to whether the video has been repaired since.
We'll address that in reports rather than that right now so we can get out of open to the public. That Mr. Dio was the last individual that had signed in. Is there anybody else that wishes? Come on up, Mrs. Kramer.
2 quick things, I think rather non-inflammatory. I can solve your budget thing. Just go on a ticketing blitz in White Meadow Lake when it snows. On the Rockaway Township site, maybe the political site, I don't know. Somebody complained about having their car taken out by a plow.
4 cars.
I don't know who did that. I really don't think that it was our guys. That's not the issue with the conversation. You're not supposed to park on the street in White Meadow Lake when it snows.
I just sort of to inform you real quick. I made a request. I called down the dispatch of the one storm that we had before the storm came into play to do a nixle. I don't want to ticket anybody, you know. I would rather have it.
And I get that, and I appreciate that. As my family has grown up and gotten their driver's licenses and have gotten cars, they didn't fit in the driveway anymore. I parked them on the front lawn, so the plows could get through.
Yeah. But what was happening where people were they were going around, the plows were doing a great job going around the vehicle, but then by the time it could go around that vehicle, it had left 4 or 5, 6 feet of snow in front of another apron of somebody else's driveway.
Correct.
So it became very difficult.
Yes. I mean, your township guys have a really hard time with this.
And they do a great job.
And they do a great job. I mean, I have snow plowing duties with the county. I get called anywhere from, now through August.
You work for D'Agostino?
No, I'm with the Morris County Park Commission.
Oh, okay.
I work with Christina's dad every day. Monhegan is not the street that I live on, but it is the street that I have to travel on.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely no room for error.
The Calmet and Sioux was the other issue that was there.
Yeah, it's bad. There is no room for error. And if I slide, it's my fault if I hit a car. And that's not fair. They're not supposed to be parked on the street. These are my neighbors. I get it. I don't want to be a jerk about this, but really.
Well, since the season's over, maybe we can address that. But the chief is aware, and again, maybe there's an opportunity.
Extremely problematic.
We're not, Mr. President, we're not looking for a ticket blitz. We're just.
What I'm saying is, they've looked at that issue so many times.
I remember on
White Meadow, certain blocks could park.
Brookside on one side.
Choose a side, then.
Yeah.
Well,
You've driven down Monhegan. It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough business. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes. Walmart, is that us, Rockaway Township, or is that Orton?
Yeah.
That's us?
Yes.
Okay. I have been getting more and more concerned about the retaining wall there. It is in terrible condition. I don't know whose responsibility that is to...
Mrs. Fronte, is that something that you can address, like with the approved plans and developers agreement that they have over there?
Oh, is something going on?
No, not actively. They have a facilities manager, and we could reach out to them.
Go take a look. And look at the top, the railings are collapsing down. There's blocks that are beginning to push out of the wall. It's a pond underneath that it's built on. It's collapsing. And if, God forbid it goes, like what just happened in Parsippany, they had a retaining wall, it's going to be catastrophic.
We have our best.
I know. Thank you. That's
thank you again. Is there anybody else that's there? No?
Present to that point about Walmart, one of the local school bands actually practices in the parking lot over there on the far side, so we have a lot of kids in that area.
Mrs. Fronte, you can make your phone calls and, if you can expedite it, I appreciate it. With that being said, nobody else there, we're going to close to the, open to the public portion. We're going on to the consent agenda. Okay. We have 9, which is the consent agenda resolutions. We have R19-50, redemption of a tax title lien against Block 10707, Lot 33, 127 Oak Street. We have R19-51, redemption of a tax lien on Block 1116, Lot 39, as 135 Hawthorne Court. And lastly, we have R19-52, and it's a resolution recognizing New Jersey Local Government Week and encouraging all citizens to support the celebration and corresponding activities by visiting with our professionals at the Municipal Building on April 9th, 2019, between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Whoa. First? Mr. Quinn and Councilman Freelander as the second on that. Any discussion? No. With that be said, clerk, do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Freelander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes, we have 9 yeses, 0 noes, no abstentions. Motion carries for the consent agenda.
Council President, I'd like to defer the 2 items under old business until the next meeting, since we have a closed session tonight.
We can real quick, because we're going to, unfortunately, we were short on some copies of some of the stuff, so the old businesses that you want to decline, we won't need to get copies of them. You're okay with that? Did you still need to? You sure? Well, the closed session probably we're going to move past as well with regard to that. We're just going to take a three-minute break real quick.
Oh, this is the 11th.
We can. Yes.
No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah, no, they don't. It's one of the problems.
So on the agenda, just so that we're all on the same. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
On the agenda, so that we know, we had 1 through 9 on the first page, and then it was jumped to 13. Mr. Jekyll had pointed it out when he first came here. And since it was just the numbering that was off, there was no missing business in between, I can either read off as 13 through 17 for the adjournment, or we can renumber it from 10 to 14. So is everybody fine the way that it is, or did Mr. Waters, maybe you want to go with the 10 through 14, or?
Perfectly happy with the logical suggestion, Mr. Kelly. Such a rare commodity here. Don't take it on you.
I appreciate your sarcasm. It's very well recognized. So then we'll change it. We're going to go, the old business was 10, which we are going to move. We're going to change new business from 14 to 11. Anybody have any new business? Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. I actually have 3 things I wanted to just...
Microphone, Mr. Quinn?
I'm sorry that the Board of Ed people left, because I was very glad to see that we were able to work out getting the cameras on the buses to protect the kids, so that when the stop sign comes out, none of the cars go by. We can get license plates now, yes, on the buses.
How many buses?
They are starting, they're retrofitting 3 of the old buses that are in the high volume area, which would be Fleetwood, a piece of White Meadow, and a piece of Green Pond Road. And then they are ordering 2 new buses that will come already set up.
Factory equipped?
Yes. Okay, so that was worked out. It took a long time to get. It took almost 2 years, but we're getting there. It's good. All right, the second thing is council meetings. I had brought up once before, trying to get the council meetings to end at 11, so that it's not only for me that I have to leave around 11 because of my health and everything else, but it's also respect for the residents. We try to end this relatively close to 11 as we can and be proactive. Just like in business, you know, it's time management, we get it done. And then the third thing I'm bringing up is that the minority of the council, we have gone out and hired our own attorney, because we're getting sued also by the mayor, and we're hiring our own attorney to cover our minority group, because we don't agree with the position that the majority has taken.
Which is?
That we believe that there should be a separation of power between the administrative branch and the legislative branch. Okay? So we have submitted the paperwork to administration for that, and we are moving forward.
Okay.
Council President, who's the "we" that Mr. Quinn refers to?
The minority is Councilman Manny Freelander, Councilman Jonathan Sackett, Councilman Joe Jackson, and Councilman Jack Quinn.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
You're welcome.
Is that it, Mr. Quinn?
Yes, sir.
You know, just to touch on the topic of the 11 o'clock. And Mrs. Lucas, I don't know if you want to come up to the microphone, because you had inquired about it as well through an email, and I figured that we can maybe even address all of us in one shot with regard.
I didn't put it out there. I asked everybody. I got responses. Mr. Quinn, I didn't include him because he had already said it.
You don't want to come up to the microphone and talk?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Freelander, Mr. Sackett, Mr. Palumbo,
yeah.
Mr. Jackson, and Mrs. Smith all said they didn't have a problem.
So
with the caveat.
Did you want to come up to the microphone, or? Okay. So, Mr. Quinn, when you talked about that, and I wish we could actually end them at 9 o'clock, to be quite honest, rather than 11 o'clock. But excuse me, the one concern though, and I know it's troubling for a whole bunch of things that could potentially happen here. If we're not finished with town business at 11 o'clock, then we have to add that additional business to the next agenda for the next meeting that we have, prolonging that actual agenda. And then as that cycle goes on there, we could actually potentially miss a whole entire agenda, putting us back further. A lot of the issues that we had is that we're working with administration now, where we're not getting all the backup data and whatnot, which then create a lot of conversation, a lot of questions, a lot of pausing, getting documentation. Our budget meeting yesterday was a little difficult because we were missing 36 pages out of the budget. We had to get some of those pages printed. We now had them sent to us this morning in an email. And it's those types of things that sometimes create additional delay. And we want to accommodate the public during the open public portion. Sometimes we have some lengthy closed sessions that take place during contracts that we just can't expedite because of the amount of monies and what's going on there. So I can't agree with you to end them on an earlier basis, especially in your situation that you're in. However, it could create more of an issue following of not finishing those things. So then what do we do? Do we then move the agenda around to actually have all the business that takes place? And then excuse me? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well,
then you know what? I take it that I won't talk about it. I try to provide some information and some discussion about it. We can't talk about it outside of the meeting because of potential quorum issues. But you're right, I'll end it based on what you said. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Does anybody else have any new business? Mr. Quinn, you're done?
I'm done, thank you.
Mr. Puzio, our Mayor Puzio? Okay. Under new business, I had sent you a memo back on March 8th. And it related to an individual that is an official in town that I think crossed the line at our last council meeting that we're here. And because of the actions of that individual and the response from the public, as well as other officials and employees that were not very pleased, that were actually disgusted, some of our own council members had made some comments and reached out to me regarding this issue. It's not. I had asked and urged you to do something in a letter.
The issue, the email that you sent, what did I respond back? That I received your correspondence and it's being reviewed.
Yeah, and where are we at now, though?
It's going to be reviewed.
I also...
It is a personnel issue because I'm not going to get into the mechanics.
No, it's okay. I'm just asking because there was a...
I'm not going to get into the mechanics of the letter. What you stated in there seemed to allude, your version of it seemed to allude that it was potentially a personnel issue. So I'm not going to speak about it in open session, but it is being reviewed.
Okay.
And I take your correspondence seriously.
Okay. And we know that the individual made no attempt for any apology or any of that at all.
I didn't speak to the individual.
Okay. But you know the individual, though.
I'm done.
Okay.
Here we go.
No more questions, but please, if you can, in the audience. So with that being said, I thought I would get a quicker response for you for an action concerning what had taken place, especially with the potential environment that it created. And it was definitely premeditated that was there. So under our own Faulkner Act that we have here, under 4069A, 37B, and we also have another statute, which is 4055D, 23B. I am actually making a motion to have written notice to that individual for removal of all positions within the township that that person may hold. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Seriously?
I'm sorry, Mr. Waters, can you say that again? Okay.
Oh my God.
Clerk, please do the roll.
Council President, I think you wanted to open it for discussion.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I would like to know from our attorney if this motion is legal.
Councilman Quinn, without some advance notice of the intent to introduce this in new business, I can't give you a definitive opinion. I'm troubled by several things, including the lack of jurisdiction of the council to affect this result and the potential rights implications for what effectively amounts to an attempted personnel action. So my recommendation to the council would be to present the motion to the township attorneys in written form. We'll do the appropriate research and advise them as to its sufficiency or insufficiency when we receive it. I can't recommend the council act on this motion at this time.
Mr. Yatrafano, I'm just going to read the statute that we have here in the motion.
Doesn't matter, Mr. Kelly. I'm not prepared to give an opinion based upon your...
You don't have to raise your voice or yell at me again. Okay.
This is the time management stuff.
If I may, I understand, but unfortunately, it's really difficult to management when you're going through it. So we're doing our best that we can to expedite it. But thank you very much for talking out in the public.
You're welcome. Under
4069A37, investigative and removal powers, and we're going to go under section B. Removed by at least 2/3 vote of the whole number of the council and any municipal officer other than the mayor or member of council for cause upon notice and opportunity to be heard. The motion wasn't to remove anybody or do anything other than to provide written notice for that person. So I don't see where it's a violation of that. In addition to 4055D23, the last component of that, the governing body may remove that individual since that individual is appointed to a particular board, which that provision under the municipal land use law pertains to for good cause. So again, the motion was made to provide notice for that individual. I had made that motion. I have a second from Vice President Abraham. Is there any more discussion? Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Based on advice from council, it's a no.
Thank you.
Councilmember Friedlander?
No.
Councilmember Jedinak?
Yes.
Councilmember
What does that have to do
Palumbo?
with it?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Since the information is quite vague to me, I'll be voting no.
Councilmember Jackson?
No.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes, motion carries. Provide the notice to the individual that's on there.
Didn't you just do 2/3?
2/3, 6?
No, it's not removal, Mr. Walters. I just read it to you. Waters, I'm sorry. Just so you know again, so you can review it yourself, it's 4069A 37B. This wasn't the removal, this was to provide written notice. I'm surprised that the individuals would support what it happened. Since we don't have any more new business, any new business, gentlemen? We go into the reports. Mr. Quinn?
I gave my report.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Smith?
I just want to tell Mr. Quinn,
Microphone.
with regard to the school buses cameras, I was driving on Mount Hope Road today by Circle Drive about 1 o'clock, and a dump truck went speeding past the stop school bus. And I wasn't going to, by the time the school bus left, I mean, he never even stopped, so I couldn't get the license plate number. But there's a real problem, and it could have been serious. Kids were getting off the bus.
Thank you.
That's it? Councilman
Other
Jennings?
than that, no report.
I'm going to go down the road, doesn't matter.
A couple of items, Council President. We had a number of meetings where there's discussion with regard to the ransomware incident that hit the police department. We haven't received an update on that issue in quite a while. Does the administration have an update on that?
It's still in the hands of law enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Related to that, so we have no update. As far as we know, it's still an ongoing incident.
Correct.
If you go to the township's website, I have a screenshot here that I'll hand over to the administration. When you when you go to the Township's website, www.rockawaytownship.org, in your web browser, you see that it says to the left of it, not secure. And if you click on not secure, it says your connection to this site is not secure. You should not enter any sensitive information on this site. For example, passwords or credit cards, because it could be stolen by attackers. So I have screenshots of that. Mr. Mayor, have you seen that?
What's the purpose of that? You're an IT guy. I don't understand what your point is.
Have you seen this issue on the Township website?
No, I have not.
So if you use a browser, it comes right up. It's right here. I'll circle it on the screenshot.
What's the point you're trying to make so we can move this along?
The issues we appear to have yet another security issue that needs to be investigated by the administration to a resolution.
Okay, I appreciate the information. I'll take that.
Okay.
And I'll put it forth.
Make sure you get it. Sure. Yes, and the point is that people do use their credit cards, people do use passwords on that site, and it should be secured appropriately. We don't want to have a repeat for the public to what happened with the police department on Thanksgiving of last year. We discussed the FRB report, Council President. There was a request made by the FRB to post it on the transparency page of the website. We've had multiple residents inquire about what they read in the newspaper, but unfortunately haven't been able to see that report directly. I would like to make a motion and have that report posted on the Township website. On the transparency page of the Township website.
Mr. Mayor, is there any possibility of a compromise for this?
Until the report is reviewed, I want the police chief to look at it. I had administration send it down. We have a report generated by the Financial Review Board. It's on part of it is on a law enforcement function. I don't even know if that report is accurate, so I'm not going to be putting it on at this time until the police department fleshes out the report and kind of vets it for accuracy. So if I do end up putting it on, I maybe put a statement up there as far as its accuracy, where it falls, where the report takes the public. So I'm not going to be putting it on at this time. I'm not saying that I'm not going to put it on in the future. I'm not putting it on at this time.
But just so we know, though, you have some members of the superior officers that are disseminating their version of the information.
Okay.
I mean, you sent it down to them. You commented in the papers about it.
I commented on the papers on the Financial Review Board? No, I didn't. I just said that I wouldn't.
The report.
I said I wouldn't cut police officers. You asked me at the last meeting about some rumor that I was unaware of. You asked if the administration was going to be laying off police officers. My response was that, how could anyone think that? I just promoted and replaced retirees. So
we're just trying to get that message across too, because again, some individuals have been falsely providing that information amongst other officers.
You know, that's a common problem in government and throughout the world, and we can only control ourselves.
Can you put the FRP report on there, or you're not interested in doing it?
Not at this time.
So I would rather not create something confrontational. The people that want it, they can Oprah it.
I have a motion.
Or they can just call administration. We'll get it to them. We'll email it if they want to contact us.
Oh, that's great. So then why not just put it on the transparency?
I'm not putting it on the transparency. It's an administrative function, Mr. Jed, Councilman
Mr. Mayor, please, both of you guys, it's done.
I have a motion.
You're late.
Mr. Freelander, please. That's all right. I'm not getting into this.
Council President, as we discussed earlier, we had our first budget review meeting yesterday. The video in this room was not working. Has the video been corrected so that...
They are. Let me real quick. I talked to our attendant over here, and Bob, you already have some that's coming out. I know Mr. Dyer was assisting with that. There was another gentleman named Brian to do that and see what's actually going on. Was that Thursday that was happening? Thursday that was happening. Is there anything else?
So that we expect it to be working in advance of the next...
We don't know.
I'd like to be able to ask my question.
I'm going to have to just really quick and nip
into the butt. Ask my question.
Because you don't need to ask that, because we don't know until they come here to find out what's actually going on. It could be something simple, it could be something long.
Mm-hmm. But we're expecting them to come before the next budget meeting.
They're coming Thursday.
Thank you. So at yesterday's budget meeting, Council President, as you stated earlier, the council, the books that the council received and the spreadsheets that were posted by the administration on the transparency page were missing 36 pages. They were missing salary information that have been provided every year for the 6 years that I've been on this council.
And we received that information this morning.
Council President,
We received
Council
that
Member
information.
Smith mentioned that for the 25 years that she's been involved in this township government, that they were there. So we voted yesterday, Council President, to have the administration email us a copy, provide us with paper of the missing information, as well as post it on the transparency page of the township website. We received an email today with it. We received paper for some of it. We received paper for the rest of it.
What's the issue, though? Just get to the point.
My question is it on the transparency page, the third part?
Mr. Mayor, can we put that on the transparency?
It's on the transparency
Thank you.
page.
Next question.
Thank you for answering that
Next
question. That was it.
Okay. Council
A
Vice
lot
President.
faster if you just let me ask.
No comment. In the spirit of time, move on.
Mr. Councilman Freelander?
I'm sorry.
No. Yeah.
Library's doing well. Library's doing well, moving forward. Hopefully I'll thank DPW for the last time, plowing, and enjoy St. Patty's Day. That's it. Move on.
You got your greens on. Councilman Sackett, go ahead.
Just a couple things. Last Tuesday was the Citizen Recreation meeting, and a lot of the sports programs are hurting for volunteers. So if your child is playing, or even if your grandchild is playing and you're Rutgers certified and you want to come help out, especially I know the soccer program is looking for some volunteers that can use your help.
Councilor Sackett, you want to have them put that on the web too for the need for that?
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
you know,
great.
if we're already doing some stuff with the IT, want to do it all together, having that. Mr. Mayor, is that something that you could do?
I'm sorry.
I know. Could you just relay that?
You know why? I'm discussing town business, so we can move.
So are we.
Okay, and you're asking me a question?
That's okay. Mr. Sackett's going to ask you the question.
I'll just send you an email. Maybe we can put some of the programs in town that are hurting for volunteers. We can send you a note, put it posted on there.
Absolutely. We're having a hard time. I just want everyone to know, getting volunteers, getting our boards filled. We're trying, the council and the administration are doing the best we can. We are working together to put that on our websites, to put it out in the media, to try to get volunteers for these boards, for zoning board, planning board, for some of the other committees. We'll do our best. We'll put it out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, a couple other things. Manny had mentioned St. Patrick's Day this Sunday. We also have next Wednesday Purim starting, so another couple holidays coming up. You know I'm Irish. Also, I want to thank the rest of the council. I know last meeting we had spoke a while about the Rockaway Township Day, and it's up and running. It's on the Rockaway Township Facebook page, and looking forward to it on June 8th. If you're not familiar with it, just go to the Rockaway Township Facebook page, and you can learn all about it. There's a lot of volunteers. I also brought it to the Rockaway Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of the local businesses want to get involved with booths, stuff like that. So I look forward to that June 8th. 11 to 9:30 at Peterson Field. Thank you.
And they got a good sponsor for the fireworks too, right?
Yes, they did. Thank you.
Councilman Jackson.
Yeah, I don't have anything to report other than to piggyback on what Jonathan was saying. If you want to coach and you're not Rutgers certified, on March 21st, the township's offering a Rutgers class here. So you can go to the website, I believe, and sign up for that. You have to go through Community Pass and register through Community Pass to sign up for the Rutgers certification class. So if you do know somebody who wants to coach and are not Rutgers certified, they can get Rutgers certified. I guess is that next week or the week after?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday. Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Do they ever have Rutgers courses here?
It's here.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be instructed. We have. I'm actually a Rutgers instructor. I'm not doing this class, but I believe there's 3 people doing the class that are instructing from the township. So we do them like 3 or 4 times a year. I'm a Rutgers instructor. I usually do one in the summer for football coaches. So
awesome, great. Thank you for your service on that. Councilman Palumbo.
Yes, just a question for Councilman Quinn. With the cameras on the outside of the bus, if based on the video of a motorist going past, the stop signs that the buses put out when the children are either loading or unloading, the police department can issue a ticket just based on that video?
That video has the plate of the car, and the police can issue a ticket. That is a 7-point ticket. All right? So, and I pray that they also take the damn license away from these idiots.
Maybe we should put you in the patrol car.
Hey, I'll do it.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
And the other thing I have is, I know Mrs. Lucas brought up about the issue about an 11 o'clock meeting. I think it could run more efficiently all around. And let's see, I consider this a relatively long meeting, although not long for Rockaway Township, because I guess we're used to 12:30 and 1 o'clock in the morning. But it's just about 10:15, and this should be considered a long meeting, and we're 45 minutes shy of what would have been an 11 o'clock deadline. So I think it can work if it all works efficiently every which way around. So that's all.
Is that it, Mr. Palumbo?
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Just a couple quick things, since we didn't have an opportunity at the last meeting. I just wanted to say thank you to the Ladies Auxiliary. They did a fantastic job with the beefsteak they had over at Hibernia Company 1. It was a sold-out show. They had unbelievable tricky tray gifts that were there. A lot of great prizes, great winners. Raised a heck of a lot of money for a good cause. Sometimes with the Ladies Auxiliary, with the money that they collect, they'll buy things for the firehouse that they need. In the last case, they had bought a whole bunch of new chairs, and they had done some new renovations inside. So if you get an opportunity, multiple places, Marcella or Hibernia and other places that have these types of events, go. It's a great time. The food's actually good, the company's great, the prizes are awesome, and you'd probably enjoy yourself with that. I wanted to comment on the actions of our fire companies and mutual aid. We had a house fire on 2 Whitfield Court that our fire company, with our new tanker, the E11, which also has the cab system that's on there, got a phone call early evening of potential chimney fire. They responded, and between mutual aid, there was just so many components of the mutual aid, I can't remember all of the, but Boonton, Kinnelon, Picatinny, Denville, Rockaway Borough was on standby. Of course, Rockaway Township, of all the aides that were there from each fire company that came, where they were able to immediately suppress the fire and then later go in with the foam cab system to apply it in the attic area to kill the hot spots they had. So they saved the home. It's about a 3,500 square foot home. And the family was there. There were the parents and 3 children. And they did a great job. And the outpour support from their neighbors, providing housing and other items that they may need. So that was a great thing that was there. The snow removal that's been going on. I'm with Mr. Freelander about ending the snow. I'm tired of it myself. And I want to make one other mention is Morris Knowles, state champs.
Oh, yeah.
They played down there at the Devils. Yeah. Knowles Hills. But our one of our fine members of our police department, Sergeant Kepler, is a coach, and it's well deserved from what those young guys did. I was a goalie for Knowles, and yeah, I was a civ though. Yeah, but anyways, they did a great job, and they should be recognized from that. And then we should have more from what our high schools do, so we can make notice of that moving forward. So with that, I don't have anything else. So I pass it over to Mr. Mayor.
No report tonight.
Mrs. Palmieri?
Oh, no report, thank you.
Mrs. Ferrante?
I'm good.
Mr. Dyer?
My nephew played on that team at Hillsborough. You beat us. He's only a freshman, so Hillsborough will be back. No,
yeah.
That's no report.
No report. And the closed session we were going to have, we had it on the agenda in the event that we needed to go into closed session to modify this. And the Bobbyville, we can talk about it. What can we talk about during the public portion? Since a lot of the documents that we have are actually public record, and there's just so much stuff that's there. What can we address? I'll bypass the closed session. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? We're not getting any response.
Make a motion.
Second.
Yeah.
He's trying to talk, you just...
Ooh.
Council President, you have a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I second it. Who's talking?
Mr. Perone, I didn't even see you back there.
Yeah.
Is there anything of the Bobbyville that you can discuss publicly?
I think we may be able to, but I think we should talk about it first, and then it can come back out if you like. I think the council should make a decision, and I think all of us should have an opportunity to talk about what has to be discussed, and if something can be discussed, we will.
Well, when we had the last time when Mrs. Seeger was here, she said that because of the last meeting, you were going to have it on the 12th, and then it snowed out. We had an emergency that was shut down, and in the 26th meeting, we were hoping to have something that's there. She said the professionals were not available, one of them being Mr. Sheard, because I have a lot of questions for Mr. Sheard. I do not see him here.
He's on vacation.
Well, with respect to you already have the report. I don't know if there's anything that...
2 days.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of questions I have with regard to the report.
I'm talking about specifically to me. I think one of the people that you want to talk to is Mr. Bureau.
I have.
Going forward.
Yeah, I have.
And then, yeah, I don't know what questions you have, Mr. Sheard, but I don't need to be present for those. So, I mean, you can do that another time, or if you want to put it off, that's fine. It's your call.
Well, if we don't have anybody here, then we're going to do it again, and it's going to be redundant. So, I mean, I would rather have it one-stop shop kind of a thing. Mrs. Seeger had indicated that we were going to have it another time later, 30 days, I think, Mr. Mayor, is what you indicated on the 26th meeting.
I remember saying it was the last meeting in March. She was going to have the report.
Yeah.
That's what it was,
Well,
yeah.
I guess we got a little earlier. So.
She probably knew Bobby was on
Like I said,
vacation.
she said 30 days, so I'm just going by that. So, and I didn't know that Mr. Sheard was on vacation. So with that being said, we'll just wait for Mr. Sheard. Mr. Mayor, could we have Mr. Sheard here at the next regular meeting?
I think there might be, let's ask Mr. Perone if he's going to be available.
That's Mr. Yachafana could respond.
As to what would you like me to respond?
Well, I mean, we have Mr. Perone, we have you as the town attorneys. What's the difference whether you are in the room in closed session with Mr. Sheard and our other professionals versus Mr. Perone? You've been working on it from what I know from June of 2016. So, I mean, you have the same amount of information maybe as Mr. Perone does?
My answer is Mr. Perone drafted the report. He should be the one to deliver the report in closed session to the council.
Excuse me, Senator, the hell out of the mayor to get this report.
Excuse me, sir.
You got it here. Why don't you talk about it?
We don't have the individuals here for the questions to do that, which Mr. Perone can't answer. So I appreciate your input from the audience that's there, but this has been going on for 25 years. So, I mean, they told us it was going to be ready for the end of the last meeting that we had of 30 days, and I have Mr. Perone here, not knowing that Mr. Sheard wasn't here. So I had no idea that Mr. Perone was attending, to be quite honest with you.
The matter was on the agenda, Council President. We tried to accelerate it because of the level of interest on the part of the council and the part of the public. That's why it was put on the agenda for tonight.
Mr. Kelly, if you have questions for me, we can, I think we can.
I don't. I have a question for Mr. Sheard. Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, can we have Mr., since it was originally scheduled to have it at the end of the last meeting in the month, will Mr. Sheard be here?
As I said before, Mr. Perone is going to present the report, so there's a conflict with him then. I assume Mr. Sheard's going to be here, but then Mr. Perone won't be here.
Well, Mr. Perone, the report kind of speaks for itself from what you wrote, right? But Mr. Sheard doesn't comment in there, and there's some questions I have with Mr. Sheard that are, moving forward with that I'd like to address. And his responses may additionally create additional communication. So we'll request Mr. Sheard to come in there, and if he can come, that'd be great. And Mr. Yachafano could be in attendance of the closed session.
Can we, if we're going to reschedule tonight, and that's what I believe that...
Well, we'll work on the agenda. We'll know when the agenda comes for the
administration will check next week and see who's going to be around. Is that fair?
Yeah, whatever you can do to have them here.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you. Again, a motion for adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Can we just do a yay? All yays?
Yes.
Thank you. We have all yeses, motion carries. Time is it? 20 after 10.